Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 320 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, and I am still alive. After my trip to Greece and a bout with COVID, we're finally back live on Twitch for GameFace. Alongside me to have the best podcast about gaming for the week is Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Yeah, who knew that was going to be such a break?
Well, yeah, really no way of knowing. How bizarre, man.
There's like dust in this room now.
Yeah, like some of you guys may only watch GameFace live on Twitch, and that's fine. So you may not know what happened, but I went on my trip to Greece. Everything was great. Literally some of the best 10 days of my life. And I came back and I got COVID on the flight back. My wife and I both got it. So we had COVID immediately after we got back. And I only really felt bad for like 2 days, honestly. Mm-hmm. And it was a bad 2 days. Like any of you guys who have had it bad, I feel really bad for you because for those 2 days, I was miserable. It is really weird. Like you can't even really put into words how it makes you feel. Like some of your symptoms are like a cold, but you have this underlying feeling underneath like the other symptoms. Again, like I think you have to have it to really understand how it makes you feel. But I really felt rotten for like 2 days, and then it just, like, that was gone. And I am all vaccinated and boosted and all that stuff. And then it was just a matter of waiting to test negative, which took forever. Like, I just felt like I could never test negative. My wife, who had had it before, tested negative way before me. And so then I was like, uh-oh, like, there's something weird with me. And then I started testing myself.
You can test positive because of the antigen reaction up to 30 days.
Yeah.
Even if you're not contagious, even if you're not sick anymore.
Yep. So in the prior episode of GameFace, I had mentioned that we were going to do a show on Friday. Well, I woke up on Friday and tested myself, and I tested negative. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, let's just go and do the show on Tuesday. Because the other thing, too, was there was a game that we needed to talk about that I was struggling to find time to play. Yeah. Because there was this other game that I was playing that's really awesome. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, let's give ourselves another couple days to play all the games we need to play. And let's just go live on Twitch to kick off GameFace 320. And here we are.
And I remain an increasingly rare unicorn, never having had COVID. The infamous virus.
Yep. So I know a lot of people in my life, and Matt and my mom are the only two people left that I know that have not had COVID. And you shared someone that we are mutual friends with that also hasn't had it yet. But for the most part, you are a dying breed, my friend.
I know my whole family up north hasn't. My mom, my sister, like that whole household hasn't had it yet.
Really?
Yeah. We're also just very resilient Neanderthal, like Norse Irish people. Like we have
you survived the potato famine.
Yeah, we don't get sick we very often. So
it is good.
Maybe that's helping. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. It is really good to be back doing the show live. Not the least of which is because doing the show not live is a huge pain in the ass because I have to record Matt and I on Zoom, and then the whole show has to be assembled by hand.
Yeah. Well, it was easier in the lockdown days because you had the TriCaster, so you could kind of record it down as it happened. But
and I wasn't going to come over here obviously until I tested negative like 4 times.
Or like I was going to have to like leave the TriCaster in the driveway.
To cruise by and scoop it up and like run away.
Throw it at him with a pool.
Yeah. There was no way I was coming here until I tested negative at least 3 times in a row, which I've now tested like negative like 4 times in a row. So, yeah, it's been crazy. Like, first of all, thanks for your patience, guys, for waiting for the show to come back in its real form. But, you know, I was sick. There's nothing I could do about it. And again, the worst part for me was being trapped at home. Like, just finally this weekend, I was able to, like, go out and, like, go to a grocery store. And we went out to a restaurant on Saturday night and had dinner. And, like, finally being able to get out of the crib. Because we live in an apartment. We don't live in a big house. So the apartment gets small real fast. When you have 2 people who have COVID, by the way, at the same time. But we made it through, and I was telling Matt before we went live, I don't feel like any residuals from having COVID, which is good. I went on a bike ride on Saturday, and my wind and my lungs are still good. Like, I didn't get worn out or anything. I've been walking up and down a bunch of stairs, and I feel like my lungs are still all cleared out and good. So I feel no worse for the wear from COVID. I also didn't have COVID brain. I didn't have like a fog. I also never lost my sense of taste or my sense of smell. So a lot of the worst parts of COVID, I managed to dodge. But again, if any of you guys have had like a real case of COVID, man, my thoughts are with you, man. Because mine was very light and it still sucked.
Yeah, I do have a couple of like friends who had the main symptom they had was the brain fog.
Yeah,
like talking about like you'd sit there and they'd kind of stare a wall for a bit, and suddenly it was 5 hours later.
Wow.
And like they just didn't have any sense of what time was or where anything was, or couldn't remember things. And
one thing that's happened to a lot of people in my family who have had it is they've lost hair. Like in clumps, like for months after they got over COVID. Now, these were people who had it pretty bad, but that's a symptom that some people I know that have had that other people may not have had. It's so weird.
It is a very weird virus.
COVID is a weird virus.
Yeah,
That's
my doctor has an old professional friend of like 40-some years who is a vaccine researcher and peer-reviewed tester. And so he's been, in the thick of this for, 2 years now. And he said his friend says, the one thing I can tell you about this thing is one of the weirdest things we've ever seen.
I've never felt like this in my life. Like, again, you have normal symptoms, like you have a stuffy nose or you have a headache or whatever, but there's just this underlying vibe about it that and it's funny,
I got a little bit of that from the side effects of one of the second
vaccines,
where it had that sort of like, why do I feel so weird?
There's
and
a weird edge to it.
And like, you don't know what, and like, you can't pinpoint, but I didn't want to do anything. I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't and that was just side effects from the vaccine the one time.
Yeah.
And thankfully the boosters didn't do that. Although the variant booster did. I did have a day of like, nah.
Yeah, see, none of the vaccines or boosters did anything to me. I had a sore arm, and that's it. So I managed to dodge COVID all this time. And then you're probably wondering how I got it. I did not wear a mask on the flight home. And it was a 14-hour flight, and there was no air circulating in the airplane.
That'll do it.
And my wife and I, we both got it. So, and there was a woman behind us that was way overweight. Like, I'm worried for her. Because obviously those are the people... She was
exposed too. Obviously.
Yeah, so those are the people who tend to not do very well. So, but I don't know.
I don't know. Meanwhile,
crazy.
I have a friend who commutes to San Francisco every week for his job because he works for this San Francisco, and so he flies twice a week, every time, and he hasn't gotten it.
My wife's boss works for a huge corporation. He flies 5 times a week.
Yeah, although as you said, your flight did not have the air circulation going.
Yep.
And that's a very, very good mitigation.
Yeah,
like
it works.
Usually planes have very good...
Yeah, and it was just stagnant and hot. Like, I
that's weird. That's so unusual. Usually planes are freezing.
I know. Yep, it was weird. But anyway, I'm here, and I'm alive, and we're here to do GameFace, and we have a great show today. Our last show was freaking awesome, loaded with awesome games. And this one... same deal. We have a great lineup of content today. We talked briefly about God of War Ragnarok because I had played it before we recorded the last show and Matt had not. Now Matt has played it, and finally the Wonder Twins here are going to put their heads together and discuss God of War Ragnarok. We're going to talk about Sonic Frontiers, a polarizing game. We'll get into that here in a little bit.
Currently, user rating on Metacritic, 10 points higher than user rating for Elden Ring. If you would like to know how useful fucking audience scores are.
But anyway, I'm glad to be back here and hanging out with you guys. Let's bring you guys up so we can see what you guys have been up to while we've been trying to survive here. Lots of people telling their stories about COVID.
Oh, yeah, because I said that too. I'm like, it's good that you got it on the plane back and not in Greece.
Oh, it would have ruined our trip. By the way, if you guys have not watched the last episode of GameFace, go check the archive. I do talk about what my trip to Greece was like, which was awesome. Also, by the way, I always talk about how when I go to foreign countries, I get a soccer jersey. Well, I did in Athens, and this is Athens football team, black and gold like the Steelers, I would add. And I was oh, winner. I was like, there we go. So anyway.
Are they doing better than the Steelers?
Probably anyone's doing better than the Steelers right now, Matt. This is one of the worst seasons they've had in 40 years. So, yeah, everyone's doing better.
You know it's bad when even I know that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Let's see. Slagathor, thank you for Twitch Prime. Iviz, thank you for Twitch Prime. By the way, we just got our Twitch Prime payout. And I know this is because, obviously, we were gone for so long. We had our lowest Twitch Prime payout ever. Ever. Like, I don't know what happened, but... if you guys, I know some people slack and they're like, I didn't do it this month or whatever. If you could do it this month, even if you don't normally,
I'm sure some of that's just because people weren't here.
That's a lot of it. Yeah,
you don't think about it until you're in the chat and you're watching the thing and you're like, oh right, I should do that right now.
But if you're like a subscriber on our Patreon or whatever, and you're normally like, well, I already give you guys some money, I'm not going to do it. If you guys could do it this month, that would be awesome because we got crushed from last month and Christmas is coming up, so a big cash outlay coming here. So if you guys could do that, that would be awesome. We'd really appreciate it. Let's see if there's any. T. Monahan, thank you for the tier 1 subs that you're gifting to our audience. Johnny Hurricane, thank you for Twitch Prime. Hope you're doing good, man. Getting ready for the holidays. And I think that might be it. David5807, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. We appreciate it. Don Lionheart. What'd you say?
You get Slagathor.
Yeah, I got Slagathor on the way up. Darmus, thank you for Twitch Prime. Are there any more? Something being used as a proxy war against Donkey. What's being used as a proxy war against Donkey?
Oh, the Sonic Frontiers audio user score, probably.
Oh, why? Because he loves it?
I don't know.
Or so he either loved it or hated it, and people were pissed off about it.
Probably he made fun. He said it was bad, and so he.
So he told the truth.
Probably.
Justin Horman, thank you, man. 65 months of Twitch Prime, man. That is awesome. I think you hold the record. I think you are the longest running subscriber via Twitch Prime. I know a lot of people say that they just put a reminder in their phone to do it every month. We'd really, really appreciate it. Johnny Hurricane, Steelers and winner in the same convo.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it for all you guys. Did your wife wear a mask on the plane? No, she did not. We both did not wear masks. We were stupid. Like, we just let our guard down, and we got burned. That's pretty much what happened.
Easy to do these days.
I was like, man, I can't take a flight, like, home and now. Like, the numbers were really low, and no, I couldn't. I should have worn a mask. Call of Duty 1, thank you for Twitch Prime. That is awesome. We're going to talk about one of your favorite games today when we talk about Modern Warfare 2, finally. Johnny Hurricane, I will now wear a mask on a plane. Yes, everybody should. Everybody, don't let your guard down. Wear a mask on a plane.
Yeah, it's if you're in a large place with a lot of people you don't know and you can't get away from them for hours on end.
Put and there's no air blowing.
Movies, movie theater, planes. Like it's I asked my doctor with his friend and his vaccination researcher friend. I'm like, he's like, have you had it yet? I'm like, no, I haven't. He's like, do you wear a mask in movie theaters and like crowded places? I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's why.
Yeah,
that's it.
It works.
He's like, it's not that it protects your, like, he's like, everyone's going to get it eventually, but you can mitigate it because the mask prevents you from having a viral load that you can't fight off.
Yep. Especially if you're
the best you can do.
If you have the vaccines and you're boosted.
And I realize that's harder in like LA. A lot of people still wear them, like at the grocery store. I'm sure in the places where people are going to like yell at you for wearing them, it's probably more.
I'm not even worried about places like that anymore.
I'm not, but like you someone out.
But if you're sitting still someplace with a lot of people, put the mask on. Corey Film, thank you for Twitch Prime as well. That's awesome. There's one other user that has 65 months, and that user is Sifted Games. Before we get going, if you're listening to this show on any of the podcast services, and it's out there on all of them, and you aren't watching the show so you can't see the graphics, if you want to support us, head to patreon.com/sifted. You can pledge whatever you want. We appreciate every dollar. That would be sweet. A little housekeeping. I know we already had some housekeeping, but a little bit more. Rumors of a Horizon MMO leaked this week.
I mean, I guess that's another live service game in the Sony.
Yeah, of the 15 that they're making or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you had to work to come up with a Horizon idea I would care about less than the VR game, but you found it. Well done.
Yep.
Like, I'll probably play the VR. I don't know why I'd want to mess with an MMO. I mean, it's probably free.
I won't touch it. Even though I love Horizon, I won't touch it.
Like, I don't find the world of Horizon that compelling on its own without Aloy. Like,
I agree.
Like that, it's a good setting for the story they're telling, but I'm not sure why I'd want to be like a rando in that world. Like
just a rank and file NPC type person.
Like, it sounds like you're gonna, is it an MMO? Is it gonna be like some kind of weird mobile style thing? It's like, I assume it's gonna be the different like nations sort of. I'm going to join the fire.
Right. The servers will be the different tribes that you come across.
And like they'll just like fight each other and like PvP stuff. It's just like I'm already boring myself.
Yep, exactly. I have no interest in it at all. Some of you might though, so we thought we'd bring it up. Control 2 was announced this week.
Cool.
It is next gen only.
Control's great.
Yep. Control is great.
I can't wait to see new stuff from them, and next gen only is great.
It came out in kind of a weak release year and ended up winning Game of the Year in some circles.
Mm-hmm. Next gen update was really good.
Yep. Doesn't seem like it sold very well in a lot of places.
Apparently, it sold very well once the price dropped.
Yeah.
They've sold a lot of units. It didn't sell revenue. What you'd expect from those units. I think.
I was surprised to learn that It Takes Two has sold 7 million copies.
Yeah.
Because one of the questions in a recent Pactor Factor was, does winning Game of the Year really matter? And his answer was kind of half and half for the most part, but It Takes Two kind of proves that it does.
The other thing is, I think It Takes Two was when got the word out to enthusiast people as well. People that because like I think a lot of hardcore gamers sort of gave that game a pass because they're like, it's a cute little platform.
Even though we sang its praises from the mountaintops.
But like if it's going to win Game of the Year, Game Awards, I mean that's some cred to someone who takes games seriously. So I think that sold a lot to that, and they deep discounted it pretty.
They did
pretty
eventually.
Quick.
Yeah.
Elden Ring, 17.5 million.
That's crazy.
So that's for a Dark Souls game. That's ridiculous.
Nuts. It's really nuts.
And there you go. There's your mainstream breakout.
Yeah.
After however many games, so let's see what they do next.
Yeah.
Johnny.
My guess is Elden Ring too.
Either that or adapt Dark Souls into it. I mean, whatever they do, it's going to be that template from now on. For sure.
And then the other smaller story from this week is that we kind of learned about the future of DC Comics video games. Going forward, DC video games are going to be part of a larger connected universe. Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it actually come to fruition.
Yeah. So that, like, not Suicide Squad, because that's part of the Arkham universe.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine you want to build on Gotham Knights at all. So we're starting over again. Yeah. Oh boy.
Seems like it. It might be for the best.
I just want to note that with all, there's all this like, Black Adam, big head, everybody, Black Adam, The Rock's back, DC, gonna Henry Cavill. Black Panther just made in 3 days what took Black Adam 3 weeks to do.
Yeah.
Domestically.
Yep.
Like, DC's got it. I mean, James Gunn, he can do it.
Yeah.
James Gunn knows how to portray that stuff, and he knows to tell good stories about good characters and let the bigger, larger world kind of take care of itself as you go forward. He's not going to put that cart before the horse. So I've faith in James Gunn. But oh boy, do we got to hack our way through some crap before that happens. And it feels like the games are in the same position where it's like you basically got to start over because they lost all their momentum.
Yeah. Well, the whole WB stuff with them being sold and not being sold, and like that kind of muddied the waters and made it a bit of a mess.
Yeah. So. At least this seems to indicate that maybe WB Montreal is going to be kept around.
Yeah,
because I was worried that after I don't know what Gotham Knights sold, but it
my guess is not very well.
Probably not what they were hoping when they started it or revamped it again. I don't know how many iterations that thing went through. I maintain that it feels like that game was built around Nightwing and the other 3 characters came later.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't. It sounds like maybe they will not all be shut down and that they will be part of an ongoing machine. Look, the first one of the Marvel's not doing too great in the game realm either, outside of like Insomniac's thing. And Insomniac's obviously churning out gold as this because that's what they do. Mm-hmm. But like other than Spider-Man and probably Wolverine when that shows up, and Guardians was good, but like there's no coherence there either. Like you could build, and Midnight Suns looks pretty cool, but like that's obviously a standalone one-shot thing. There is probably room to do something like that, to do some kind of interconnected game
for sure.
universe.
I mean, the idea makes sense.
But like where,
the execution is what
I mean, I guess EA is doing 3 games, they said. Yeah. So maybe they'll do something there, but it's EA. We saw what they do with Star Wars.
I mean, that's the other problem too, is if it's not unified under one publisher, how do you get everyone to play nice?
Well, theoretically, I mean, Marvel used to have like a games division that sort of watchdogged everything. And you theoretically could do that. Lucasfilm did that, or LucasArts did that forever. All the games in Star Wars technically sort of, they weren't technically canon, but they were not contradictory to canon.
Yep.
Back in the EU. So you can do it. Like you can definitely do it. It's just you have a plan. You gotta know what you're doing. You gotta figure this out. You gotta talk about it. You gotta care. That's a thing. And I mean, to be fair, James Gunn does care about that kind of thing.
He does.
And he knows video games. He likes video games. He cares about video games. So maybe he'll have an influence there.
He knows fandom.
Yeah, this could be the beginning of a real turnaround for this if Zaslav and the Hatchet people that are running that studio now let them do it.
Yeah.
At any moment that company could be turned around and sold for modest profit to some other. I'm waiting for that to happen. I think Warner Brothers gets sold off to probably NBC Universal by 2026. And piecemeal.
Which means they'll start all over again.
Well, yeah, because I don't think NBC would want DC. I think DC would get sold off to somebody else.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Fire Native, thank you for Twitch Prime. Appreciate it. We appreciate everybody who subscribes with Twitch Prime. Again, it makes a big difference, and we got burned this past month. Nobody subscribed, so we definitely need some help this month if you can. All right, Matt, let's get on with it. Let's talk about a game that I discussed last week, but you did not because you hadn't played it yet. God of War Ragnarok. I feel like our verdict on any game is not complete until you and I discuss it together. And so we are kicking off this episode with God of War Ragnarok once again. I had played a handful of hours of it by the time we talked about it for last week's show. And my pretty much the big takeaway, I think, from what I said in that episode was that it felt very samey, but still very high quality.
Yeah.
And now I've played, I think my last save that I looked at, I'm like 22 hours into it. I still haven't finished it. Mm-hmm. But I'm a long ways into it. I've played a metric ton of God of War Ragnarok at this point. How far are you, roughly?
Not that long. I mean, I don't know how hours because I leave it on pause and it still counts the time. Yeah. So it says I'm like 9, 10 hours in, but I know I haven't actually played that amount of time. But I'm like on the third world.
Okay.
Basically, like third major shift in location after you leave Midgard. So I'm slowly building out the gateway, basically. Seems like there's a lot more to go.
You've got a lot more to go, my friend.
But
I feel like I'm 20 some hours into it. I don't feel like the game's even starting to wrap up yet. Mm-hmm. Like I don't feel like I'm even getting hints at the end game at this point. It is a big boy.
So yeah, I mean, right even now it feels like so this is still warming up the first act of your standard story structure.
Yeah,
so it's they went big for sure. They did not waste any time in the 4 years since the first one. Yeah, they have been putting a pretty big thing together. It's really good. I will say it's not grabbing me the way the first one did. I tried to say that as nicely as possible because I had only played 5 hours of it, and I didn't want to put that opinion out there until I was more sure of it. Yeah. But now that I've played 20-some hours, I will wholeheartedly say it now and agree with you 100%. And it's just like, I can't quite put my finger on it.
I can tell you why now, having played a lot more of it, is that there's nothing... It's just literally a continuation of the last game. Yeah. There's no new plot movements. It's still, even 20-some hours in, it is still resolving things that happened in the first game that went unresolved.
That's true.
And so there's not like this new narrative or this new thing. Look, Atreus, and people complain that we've been saying his name wrong. How do you say it?
What, Atreus?
Atreus. Somebody got really salty about us not saying Atreus.
Nobody uses his other name?
Exactly. And spoil everything. He's still a snot-nosed kid like he was in the last game.
Although I do enjoy that he talks back to Kratos.
Yeah.
I like that he makes fun of him a couple of times. There's a couple times he does his impression of him, which is very funny.
Yeah.
And I like that Kratos is willing to let him do that to a point, and there is one thing where he goes a little too far, and I was like, oh, that's too far, and he's like, you will not talk to me in that manner. I was like, yeah, no, you won't.
Well, I think Atreus,
Kratos says Atreus.
He does. I think that he's starting to understand that he's also very powerful.
Yeah, he's just not quite.
That's really the thing that this game... That's the story that this game tells.
Yeah.
Well, it's the coming of age.
A lot of the stuff with Kratos, and he sees himself in this kid. Like, he realizes that, like, there's a bunch of sections where Atreus is making arguments about, the use of power and the use of violence that Kratos from God of War 1 through 3 would have agreed with. Mm-hmm. And this Kratos does not.
Yeah.
And... it's a very Christopher Judge his performance on this is exceptionally good because you just get through his timbre that he doesn't like what Atreus is saying. He doesn't want Atreus to believe these things, but he knows how it feels to believe those things, and he knows that nothing he says is going to stop Atreus from believing those things, and he knows Atreus has to go through shit to learn that. He just, as a parent, he doesn't want his kid to have to do that. And there's a couple of really nice exchanges that sort of reflect that parallel-wise with, I think, where there's a point where he asks him, like, was your childhood growing up and training as a Spartan, was that really hard? And he said, yeah, it was.
He sucked,
it was.
yeah.
And he's like, how come you didn't train me like that? Did you think that I couldn't take it? And Kratos says, no, I did not think you should have to.
Yeah, why?
And it's like, and then Atreus says, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a really good insight into
There's a lot
who
of
Kratos
thoughtful
is.
banter between the two of them.
One of the things I'm most pleasantly surprised by in this game is how quiet it is.
Yeah.
In the cutscenes. The cutscenes are not, there are big bombastic set piece things that happen, but a lot of the cutscenes are broken people talking to each other about things. And some of it is really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Like this is a very sad game.
Well, it's like what's the disembodied head?
Mimir.
What's his name? Mimir. Like, people run into him, and they don't realize what happened to him.
Yeah.
So they're like, where's the rest of your body? Like, the one guy sees him and, like, runs away, and is like, oh, my God, you've killed him. And it's like, no. Like,
he's like, no, brother, I'm all right.
Yeah.
Oh, now we got to chase him.
And I will say this, too. Like, there's some cutscenes with the head that are just, like, absurd. It's like they're standing there having this serious conversation, and there's Kratos holding the head up. Yeah. It's like, there's another scene where they're eating dinner at the table, and the head's, like, sitting on the table. Like, it's... Yeah.
But it's also like that's mythology.
Yeah,
like
I feel like they got like painted themselves into a corner with that character, and now they're just like, well, we just got to do what we got.
But I like that absurdity of it. It reminds you that everything is very weird.
Yeah,
like, and I actually like a lot of the unorthodox takes on some of the, like, Odin basically being like a CEO,
right?
Like, he's a fast-talking middle manager. He's trying to work a deal. He's trying to get. He's got appointments he's got to get to. It's really good.
Yeah.
Like, it's like there's a weird, almost modernist element to some.
It helps relate the characters to people today.
Yeah. And like and there's been moments where I'm just like, should Atreus really be saying cool
right
at time? But then, like,
games do that with me.
But you kind of assume that it's like it's whatever the ancient Norse equivalent of cool. You're translating it for
games do that all the time, where they say, and it does bother me, where they say words that you're like, wait a minute, that's from like 1998. Like,
it's also a technique of like how Atreus and some of the others talk like that, whereas Kratos has a more archaic way of speaking to indicate that he is very, very
old. He's old school.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. How do you feel about the gameplay so far?
I mean, it's very similar, obviously. I will say this, and I haven't played the original in a while. I feel like I get, like, hit in the back a lot more in this game. I feel like I feel like I'm doing a lot more work trying to stay on one side of the enemies, and I get blindsided more often in this than I did in the first one.
I've died a lot more in this than I did in the first game.
I've definitely died a lot more in this one. Yep. Through like fighting things that I know I should be able to handle, but it just doesn't quite...
Or they catch you at the wrong time, or one of them uses projectiles. That always throws a...
Projectiles are, sometimes, but mine was like early on, you run into these like kind of little mini bosses called the Hungry, and some of those fights, and I know I'm doing the right amount of, you played video games long enough, you're like, okay, I'm doing enough damage that I can beat these guys if I do it right.
Yeah.
And there have been times where I'm like, that guy just took my whole life bar out in
with
2
a couple
hits.
chops, yeah.
And 2 hits that I had no real way around.
You got to use the shield way more in this one.
Oh, I have the shield that does the parrying because I'm good at that because of Dark Souls. Yep. But like, there's times when it's like, okay, I parried the yellow attack. And it stopped him in his tracks, and I got the stun. Great. And sometimes I'll parry the yellow attack, and he just keeps going.
Well, this also doesn't suffer from the Assassin's Creed syndrome, where the enemies stand around and watch you kill the other enemies.
No, they keep going.
They keep attacking while you're fighting with the other enemies.
And in the end, the answer is you got to use all your abilities. Yep. You got to be ready to use your. You can't be afraid to use the stuff that cools down. You can't just like go in, and because you could go in the first game and pretty much just use your basic melee attacks and get through almost anything. This one you really got to use what you're using, and it means that what you're choosing as your light and heavy runic attacks matter more. So I get that, and eventually I kind of pieced that together. But early, like, they go around you and flank you a lot more, and on
you got to roll
hand,
a lot. Like, the sound effects help a ton.
Yeah, and
because you'll get like an auditory cue that an enemy's about to attack.
The cue, the other characters will call out and stuff.
And so I'll just roll real quick to try to get away.
Yeah, and you get the arrows. I mean, all the information is there. It's just not as satisfying to me to have to constantly be on the move like that. I feel like it's not capturing the power that Kratos had before. And as you level up, you get closer to that. But like, it's just not like, it doesn't feel as immovable object meets irresistible force as the first game. It feels a little more Assassin's Creed-y.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I feel about that yet.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's moments where you are not playing as Kratos that change.
There's a lot of moments where you do not play as Kratos in this game. There's a lot of times where Atreus is not your sidekick. There's another sidekick there. But if you learn how to use Atreus in combat, and I mentioned this in last week's episode, way more powerful this time. Way more effective this time. Like, I kill a lot of enemies just using him sometimes.
Yeah, especially once you go further down his assist tree.
Yep.
Like, there's some couple things that like, oh, that's really good.
Well, he can hold enemies for
hang
a
on to
really
guys
long
forever,
time,
and eventually
one shot will like kill him now.
And he can do extra hits on them after you've done things. Like there's a lot of options.
You do combos with him too.
Yeah.
If you start unloading, he'll start unloading alongside you. So he is a way better character. But so you learn how to use the sidekick using him, and then later on in the game you have different sidekicks, and the strategies still apply.
There have just been times when I found myself sort of wanting the old God of War camera angle because it lets you see more of the battlefield.
Yeah.
And I never felt that way in the first game.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the sometimes the camera feels a little claustrophobic that close to, and behind him.
Well, I think a part of that,
and he doesn't turn very well.
He doesn't.
It's
There's
hard
no quick
to get around.
turn that I found either.
I don't think so.
And the other thing, I think the reason why that's so prevalent is because of the verticality that I talked about in last week's episode, because you now have the hook shot that you can get up to cliff faces really quickly. There's a lot more like going up and down walls, and that makes it more difficult for the camera to give you the better view.
Yeah.
So I think that might be playing into it a little bit.
There's a little bit of I feel there's a little bit I kind of wish the camera was not that the camera was smarter, but like because you have to aim the camera at the thing you want to interact with, and sometimes I really want, like, I know there's a hook shot up there, I've been up it 4 times, I just want to hit the circle button and do it without having to tilt the R stick, the right stick up. Like, I wish there was a little more, I mean, I know you can turn the settings so he does that stuff automatically, but I don't want that because I want him randomly jumping up things while I'm trying to fight.
That is one thing we should mention that I said last week was it's annoying how you have to keep using the circle button to just climb up little steps and whatnot. You can go into the settings and you can turn it on so it will do auto traversal. And there's two levels. There's 2 levels. I ended up using the first level. I didn't go all the way.
I will say, like, that accessibility options menu, holy shit. Like, that, you can tell it if you have a single, if any kind of possible disability or ability difference you may have that might make it difficult to do any kind of part of this game, there's an option in there to help you.
It's very thoughtful. Yeah.
It is the most extensive accessibility menu I think I've ever seen in a video game.
Yep.
And Sony's first-party stuff has been doing really good on that already. Yeah. But this is just next-level stuff.
Yep.
Really, really impressive.
But the game doesn't really mix stuff up that well. We did talk about how there's other characters that you play as, and there's other sidekicks that go on quests with you. But
also, I do think it's a little cutscene heavy in the first hour or so.
It is. Like, all this B-roll that you're seeing right now is all from the first hour, so you haven't seen a whole lot of combat, because it really does just try to catch you up and then get the story going in the first hour of the game, instead of bringing in a lot of the combat. But eventually,
also,
it does get to the point where...
Just because we're looking at this, I think her character model is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, she looks weirdly out of place. When I first saw her in that
I mentioned this
scene,
last week.
It was like, what is that?
I mentioned how some of the characters don't look like they fit in the universe. And it's not just her. There's a couple other ones.
Yeah. And I know she's a dream.
Right.
But still...
in this sequence here,
I don't know. Like, it was weird. I thought that was weird. Like,
but so I'm 20-some hours into it, and the story is still resolving stuff that happened in the game from 2018. Like, there hasn't been like, okay, we figured all that stuff out. Now here's the big twist, and off we go. That could happen eventually. There's still a lot of game left, but I haven't hit that point yet. I'm still trying to sort out all the conflicts from the last game still. So... And that's, again, I'm a long way into the game at this point. So I don't know if there's some big twist eventually in the final act. I don't know. But so far, it's just...
Ragnarok has a lot of shifts in it.
Yeah. And they do work that in. Like, you come across characters who are like, oh, you know, all bets are off. It's Ragnarok. Like, there's nothing more important than either us stopping Ragnarok or us managing to live through Ragnarok or whatever. There is definitely that angle to the story.
I definitely never need to hear the word Fimbulwinter again.
What do you think about the visuals?
It's good. They look really cool.
There's some drawing in this game.
A little bit.
Which I don't remember ever seeing in the last one.
Yeah, it's like there's some clutter, especially when you're paddling. Like mostly stuff on the shores, I think, is what I've seen. They do remember, however, the most important part where collectibles can be seen as far away as possible.
Yeah. We're going to talk about a game in a minute that the drawing is so bad that it actually negatively impacts playing the game.
And I think it looks good. Like it doesn't have the blow you out the back of the theater sort of element that a next gen only one would maybe.
Yeah.
And it does chug a little bit at times.
I haven't seen that actually.
In cutscenes and in some like I've never seen it do it in combat, but it does. I've seen a little bit in a couple of exploration areas.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of that.
Nothing that I'd be like, oh my god. I mean, look, we're gonna also talk.
Well,
about
which
something.
setting do you have it on? Do you have it on
Performance?
Yeah, see, I have it on fidelity, and I still haven't really seen too much chugging.
Yeah, I've seen a couple. It's not terrible. But yeah, it looks really nice.
It's a really good looking game, but again, it is comprised of these relatively small areas compared to like open world games. It should look amazing.
I mean, I got some, like there's some very large things that show up and look very impressive. But you got, like her hair doesn't look amazing.
Yeah,
there's things like that, but it looks fine. It looks.
Yeah, it still looks great.
But it does look like an outgrow. It looks like a 1.5 of the previous game.
Yeah,
I guess is one way to say it.
How do you feel about the level design now, 4 years later? The fact that it isn't an open world game and it's kind of these little sections of the world that are snapped together.
I like finding the little spots you can land the boat on, and I got a little section to explore, and it feels manageable. It feels like it's like, I can find this, and I know that this is over here, and I know that the language is still the same. It hasn't presented a lot of new challenges so far. I mean, obviously, I'm technically early.
There's a lot of puzzle solving in this, and I kind of forgotten that about the first.
Yeah,
the last
that's
game.
one of my big things with this game is, and it applies to other games too. But this is the first game I can remember that I've really been irritated with it. Shut up and let me figure out the puzzle for 5 seconds. Like, as soon as you get anywhere, they're like, hey, it looks like that lever probably controls. Yeah, I know. I'm walking towards it.
They really don't want you to get stuck.
And it's like, hey, brother, it looks like that wheel might be the thing. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
I haven't even seen the wheel yet.
I haven't seen the wheel yet, and you're facing the other direction. How do you see the wheel before I do? I actually the reason I looked in the accessibility menu so hard was I'm like, is there somewhere that I can turn companions telling me how puzzles get solved off? And there is not.
I'll say this though, I did play some of it with the audio off because my wife needed to talk to me about something. And if you don't have those audio cues, some of the puzzles in this are hard to figure out.
Yeah, I think they do that so fast because I'm sure in focus testing, the people who just want to hit stuff with an axe were like, I don't know what you want me to do.
Why would I waste? What am I doing here? Because there's a lot of it. There's a lot of puzzle solving in this game.
But I can figure that out.
Yeah.
Like just give me an option, like ask somebody for help.
If I want it.
Like, I don't need Atreus to constantly narrate the puzzle for me before I can even get to the next. Like, it's not even like I've stood there for a couple of minutes.
Well, they're also obvious. They're not like, hey, fiddle around with that thing over there. They're like, hey, you should freeze the water coming out of that water thing. And that will back
Swanman says there is a puzzle extended timer, and then Vincent says that doesn't work.
Oh,
so, I don't know.
There you go. But there are
it happens so fast that it almost feels like a bug.
Yeah.
Like they instantly start telling you the answer to the puzzles as soon as you step foot in the puzzle area.
Yeah, as soon as you get in the immediate area of the puzzle. But I would say the game is split probably like 50-50 combat.
Yeah, it's pretty
to
close,
puzzle solving. I was surprised by that.
I'm always a little surprised when combat lasts more than like a minute.
Yeah, because each skirmish is kind of like an arena battle.
Yeah,
it's like you go into an open area, it floods with enemies, you kill them all, you get a little chime, and then you move on. And I would say this, I do feel like this game does feel a little dated now, Matt. It's 4 years later from the 2018 game, and even in 2018, this kind of a design was kind of already a relic of the past. Now it really does feel like an older game.
I will say that I don't think there's a lot of games like this.
Not anymore, no.
I don't mind that it still does that because I'm like, if I didn't want to play this, what would I play instead? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing else like it right now. So I don't mind that, but it does feel so familiar that there's an element of like, oh yeah, I know what's going to happen now. And so what I'm left with is like the interest of seeing what happens to the characters next. And as you say, this one's a slow burn.
It is, yeah.
One thing I do also appreciate is, and it isn't as prominent because obviously they don't design levels around it because it's not the first game. You can still do all the things you could do in the first game when you were fully powered up by the end of the game. Like every once in a while you will run into the things that were like the obstacle types that kept you away from things for like 14 hours in the first game, and now you already have the ability to just destroy them or get them out of your way instantly.
Yeah.
Which I think is really fun. I think that's cool. Like, I like that they kind of make a point that they can still do those things. Although there is a moment where the blacksmith dwarf is like, "Where's all the armor I made for you before?"
Yeah,
and Kratos is like, "I used it."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, try not to get these destroyed." He's like, "No."
Yeah.
Kratos is very, very funny in this.
He is.
In a way that
he has some great one-liners.
Really before.
Yeah.
And part of that is because Atreus and Mimir are familiar and kind of, Atreus isn't afraid to sort of play with him a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a good
he ribs him.
change. Because it's funny.
But I think Kratos also in this game is coming to terms with the fact that Atreus is not going to ultimately be a pushover either. Like
he's his son.
He's starting to understand that he's going to be really powerful, and you see the respect start to be reciprocated back towards Atreus in this versus it was a one-way street in the prior game.
Kratos has accepted that he has to let Atreus spread his wings a little bit.
And Mimir or whatever, the disembodied head, the dialogue that he has with Kratos also pushes him in that direction. He tells him all the time, look, you need to let him learn.
Yeah, they're co-parenting a little bit. Yeah. It's fun.
It's a great game. There's no denying it. I have been hooked on this game for the last week, and it made it very hard to put it down and go play other things, because you start playing the other things and you realize the craftsmanship compared to this game is an effing joke. There's the little details that you can tell they spent 4 years with a really talented development team grinding on this game. You can see it clear as day, all the work that has gone into this game. But it's not without faults, and I'll just be honest with you, I have not enjoyed it as much as the game from 2018. I think a lot of it is because it is very samey and very similar. And in a lot of ways, in all the best ways, the best parts of the 2018 game are absolutely here, but it's lost that ability, that shock and awe that the first one had. And to our points we were making earlier, I feel like the story is constructed in such a way that hasn't kind of helped abate that feeling.
Yeah, and I think it'll generally work overall. I do know that they've talked about it being a trilogy, and the next one's going to have to be very different.
That was kind of my closing question.
Yeah.
Is will this be good enough in another 4 years?
No, I think, and look, just from what I've already seen so far, I think this is going to end in a way that sets things up to be very different.
I am very nervous. I'll put it to you that way. I'm 22 hours in, and as I said, I haven't really gotten any hints of an end game or anything, but just certain little lines of dialogue here and there, a couple scenes that are in the game, I'm starting to get nervous.
Yeah, and the other thing, of course, with Sony Santa Monica, it's if you're asking the question, are they going to have the balls too? The answer is always yes.
Always yes.
So,
yeah. Not saying anything, not spoiling anything.
Yeah, I don't know
what happens yet.
But I do know that if I were telling this story, the third game would be a very different beast from the first two. Yeah. Just by nature of what the narrative would have to be. And you change it around, and then from there you go forward into a very different world. Yeah. I do hope that this is the last one that deals heavily with Norse stuff. Yeah. I think I'll be good. I'm done with all the Norse shit. Yeah. I want to see them go. I want to have a crazy chase quest through the pantheons of all these other pantheons they've teased. Yeah. So. Well, it's
been crazy for me because I just came back from Greece. And so it's been a little bit disappointing to see how little of Greek mythology is actually in this game.
Well, that's because he killed it all.
Right. Already. He's already wiped it all off of his universe. So, great game. I recommend buying it. I do like
when 100%. Some of the other characters know who he is and know what happened.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's kind of the whole plot of this game.
Yeah, they know those blades.
Everybody knows what he's done,
and you're finally starting. And Atreus is finally starting to kind of recognize the magnitude of what his father did.
What happened? Yeah,
and that's in him too. Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Yep. You could
nuance.
I'm sure they're thinking about it, but you want to do a prestige TV series out of this thing the way they did with Last of Us. It's here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably going to happen. Yeah. I think it's safe to say that.
I imagine that's going to happen after they have more on the table, because clearly you can't make the TV show before you know how the game ends. But no, I think you could justify that. Yeah.
And here you're seeing playing as Atreus.
You're seeing a dead child.
Yeah, with a different sidekick than Atreus himself. But they all control the same. So once you get used to working with the sidekicks in this game...
I did call that years ago, that you would play as Atreus in this game.
Yeah.
Like that was obvious that's what
I don't think that's a stretch, but
no, but it was interesting because when I'm like, okay, how's this going to work, ranged boy, in a game that is very melee focused, but they made it work.
Yeah,
it's
well, I mean,
he's actually pretty fun to play as, and a lot of times when you switch off of the main character, for me, I get kind of spiky. I'll be like, yeah, I want to play this guy I like. I don't want to play this also ran. But
his finishers are great.
He's cool.
Though.
Like he's it's a fun. It's also like because you're fighting a lot of the same enemies and you have to fight them so differently, it makes it a different combat challenge, which I like.
But if you start using your sidekicks correctly, he gets set up for finishers over and over again. Like, you hardly ever have to chip down enemies to past half their health before he'll get set up and you just run up and click the R3 and finish him off.
And there's a lot of fun. So, like, if you watch because Citri throws things, and he pulls them out of his magic bag thing, and they're all different.
Yeah,
like it's like if you just watch what he's throwing, it's the variety is crazy.
You're right.
Like,
it is crazy. Yep.
A lot of attention to detail in the game.
Yep, and that's what I loved about the first game, and that is absolutely here as well. So Matt, I mean, I don't think I'm going out on a limb here to say that we both recommend buying this game.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I mean, as
the
long as you
craftsmanship in this, you rarely experienced this level.
As long as you weren't expecting like them to completely reinvent the wheel, which would have been pretty silly based on the videos we'd already seen. Yep. It's exactly what you think it is, and it's exactly as good as you expect it to be from Sony Santa Monica.
Yeah. But I do think this is kind of my last pass for this franchise.
Yeah, the next one needs to be a different thing. I mean, you don't need to reinvent the wheel completely in terms of like perspective and how the gameplay, but you need to do something very different with what you're doing, where you're doing it, and how you're doing it.
Yeah.
It needs to be a reinvention on the on kind of the nature maybe of like between Assassin's Creed and Assassin's Creed Origins.
That's a good analogy, I think.
Maybe not change the genre necessarily, but like something needs to really shift.
I mean, I think it probably needs to be open world, like a real open world game.
Maybe. I mean,
I think it probably will be.
I don't think we need to worry about that for
another 4 years or so. I'll end up playing this again. I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know if there's going to be a lot of great like post game content. Like,
here's the thing though, like with the non-open world lets you have these areas that all feel so like chunky and real and there and designed. Like,
a lot more detail.
I don't know if I want to lose that.
I mean, because look at all the detail and all that gear work there.
Yeah.
Like in an open world game, you're probably not going to get that.
Yeah, but it would be few and far. You know, you'd have to traverse areas.
It would be at an empty expanse.
Yeah, like I mean, you have that now here, where like that's basically what the boat is. You know,
yeah,
the boat isn't. It's technically an open world with a lot of canals.
Yeah.
You know, I think just the other way around would be to just do it as like, you know, horse or something, or I don't know, whatever mythological creature you decide to have Kratos or whoever ride. I don't know, like I don't know, like to me, I'm not thinking like reinvented as a open world game. I'm thinking more like, I don't know, it's a hard. It's hard to kind of verbalize what I'm thinking, but it just needs to feel very different while still being the same series.
Yeah.
And
well, I think
it's not as drastic as between obviously God of War 3 and this.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Like, I think you've gone as far as you can go with Kratos and the boy. Like, they're journeying together.
I think organically that's going to happen.
Yeah,
we'll see.
So.
But it feels like it's kind of heading that way.
I mean, in my head, I imagine that in the third game, Kratos is the antagonist. So, well, you know, I feel like in the end, you got to fight the God of War.
Yeah, but there's someone else in this game that they call the God of War.
Yeah, I mean, there's gods of war everywhere. I mean, it's also possible that you end up in a situation where you got to go kill all the gods of war,
right,
across all the pantheons.
Could be. Yeah,
and there's other gods in those pantheons that aren't going to be too happy about that plan, and so you have to fight them too. Like there could be I just want to see Kratos fight Egypt. Like, it's like Egyptian gods are so fucking crazy that I'd love to see them get like kind of, you know, imagined here.
That would be cool. Yep.
Especially with like the weird take they have on like, you know, like Odin being a middle management like deal maker. Like I'd love to see what they do with like Osiris.
Yeah,
because you can play with some of that stuff really well. Like, it doesn't all have to be like super badass heavy metal cover stuff. Like it could be really funny.
Yeah,
like you know,
there's a little touch of that in this one.
Yeah, like there's
definitely a lot more humor in this one.
Yeah, they lean into the absurdity of some of the myths in this that I think is refreshing.
Yep,
especially for this series because the Greek stuff did not.
Yeah,
not so. I mean, Hercules a little bit.
Yep. So that's 2 thumbs up from GameFace. Easy buy. I'm guessing most of you guys have already bought it by now. You're already enjoying it, and you may be even further than I am at this point, and you're like, oh, Shane's wrong or Shane's right. Let's try to keep it clean in the chat, though. Let's not ruin anything for anyone. But I'm having a blast with it. I don't know exactly how much further I still have to go, but I have not wanted to stop playing, and it made some of my time this week feel like a job. We're very lucky, and that this, doing this, running Sifted, GameFace, Patron Factor, it very rarely feels like work for me. It felt like work this week because I had to pull myself away from God of War Ragnarok to play some of the other games for the show. And it was, really isn't work doing something you don't want to do for money. Isn't that what work is?
Usually. Yeah,
typically. So I had to do a little bit of work this week to play some other games because I am enjoying God of War Ragnarok so much. So, we tend on GameFace to try to point out a lot of faults because there are some people where specific faults are deal breakers for them. And if we bring something up, that may tell somebody that they don't want to play the game at all. So we do tend to bring up a lot of faults on GameFace, but at the end of the discussion, we always finish up with our recommendations.
If you're annoyed by Aloy pointing out how you get through puzzles, this thing's going to drive you up the fucking wall.
Yeah.
Like, it's the worst. It's the worst. Here's how you solve this before you even get a chance to solve it I've ever seen in a game.
Yeah, and I would argue if you don't like environmental puzzles, you probably won't like it that much either.
Yeah, but also, if you play the first one, you know that.
You do.
And you shouldn't be playing this game without playing the first one.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by how much the game just assumes you already know how to play.
Yeah. Which game's better, 2018 or this one?
I don't know yet. I'm inclined to think it'll be the first one.
I've played 20-some hours of this. I wholeheartedly believe the first game is better already.
I'm gonna have to see because I'm right now. I'm not far enough to make that judgment, but I do feel like we're kind of in an Arkham Asylum, Arkham City situation where it's going to depend whether you like fast and
very
tight,
specific,
or like big and sprawling.
Yeah.
Because they're so similar in other ways. So I prefer City to Asylum, but I understand why someone would like Asylum because it's so there's not a wasted inch in that game.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think it's going to come down to what you value more.
Maybe we'll come back to this in next week's episode once Matt's had a chance to play even more of it, and just spend maybe 5 minutes in the show open or close talking about it. Actually, maybe we should go and check the chat and see what people are saying, because I think your opinions have a lot of value, not just for us, but for the people who watch GameFace in the archive on YouTube or wherever. Oh, Henry Pumpkins, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. Mike's Q, did you see that you can change the traversal options? Yeah, we mentioned that actually, you can set it up for auto traversal in a lot of cases. And we did not know that last week. Lestevid, thank you for Twitch Prime. 31 months. That's quite a run you got going there. Thank you, man. Sneaky, what's going on, man? Hope you're doing good. Would you rather This Is the Way It Is, the same but fantastic, or something new and different but meh? Well, I would never choose meh over this.
Yeah.
Never. But you can do something new and different and make it awesome, because that's what God of War in 2018 was. So it's very possible to do it, and they've proven that they can do it already. This studio has proven that they can do it. So I don't think it's one or the other, but to answer your question, yeah, I'd rather have the same but fantastic if the different is meh. Cinetai, this is subjective, but do you feel like the game was held back by being cross-gen? Yeah, I do a little bit. Absolutely.
Not really, no.
I think visually it has.
Maybe visually in terms of some of that, but overall, I don't see what you'd have done differently that could only have been done on PS5 outside of visual bells and whistles. I think game design wise, it would have been the same thing.
I think that they were going to design it this way no matter what, because it's a sequel.
Also, as we said last week, I'm pretty sure they thought this was going to come out a year earlier.
Yeah. But I do think that if they decided to go the open world route with the next game, that the fact that I'm assuming the next game will be a PS5 exclusive, I think the hardware will help in that endeavor.
Yeah. And you don't know, maybe they could make it open world with that.
Yeah. Sneaky does bring up something that's interesting. He says, gameplay-wise, it's held back. Those crawl spaces that slow down path things they do. They're less loading cracks. Liberal Hack brings it up. There are cracks in the game that you crawl through where they're loading the next section of the game, which is ridiculous. That should not have to happen in this game on the PlayStation 5 particularly, but because you're also making it for PS4, you have to do it that way.
Yeah, but they also walk a lot faster in those sections than they did in the other game.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, I am a little oversensitive to those kind of things. Just like, certainly in Final Fantasy VII Remake, that half ruined the game for me.
Yeah.
The other half being the story.
Yeah.
Not a problem here. But yeah, it's not super bad. And I like that they do sometimes find ways to justify it. Like I like that, like, we got to duck through this tunnel and duck under this thing because they're dwarves here.
Yeah, yeah.
And like so they're short, so they aren't built for a 6.5 foot tall Greek guy. You know, so it's fine. It's not like a deal breaker
or anything. Yeah,
it's not a deal breaker, but it's also not ideal. But like you see it sometimes.
Yeah, yep. But otherwise, it's a great game. Highly recommend going out. Again, it's a very large game, so you're going to get your money's worth if you go and buy it. You're not going to buy it and then be done with it in a day. And I mean, I've been like dedicated to this game since we talked about it last time, and I'm still not done with it. So it's definitely worthy of your money. I'm having a blast playing it, and I can't wait to finish it. And hopefully I do that before we talk next week. But maybe not, because I have to play games like this next game, which is Sonic Frontiers. Talk about a brand new take on an old franchise. Mm-hmm. Sonic Frontiers is an open world Sonic game, which when I first heard of the idea, I thought it was completely idiotic and absurd. And then we saw some footage of the game and we read some previews where it started to maybe make a little bit more sense. Mm-hmm. And then I played it, and now I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle. Like, I don't hate it, but I don't know that it works.
I think the open world stuff works for the most part better than the combat.
Okay.
All my issues with this, because I actually like running around the open world and finding weird shit. Like you find little roller coaster sections and jump through things. Also, I am weirdly constantly reminded of Death Stranding by this game. I think because it's so gray and like kind of blank.
No, I see what you're saying. Because the sky's like really blue.
Yeah.
And then the ground is like really detailed, but it's like this gray and black, craggly,
gray-brown thing. And then like
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and then like when you do the checkpoints that give you the map stuff, they build more like rails, and like the idea is you don't really have fast travel. You can ride the rails quickly between the checkpoint parts. And for some reason that reminds me of building like the electric highways in Death Stranding. And like I just keep thinking of Death Stranding when I play this game. And that's not compliment Sonic Frontiers. Like, that's not something I want to be reminded of.
Well, Matt, what it reminds me of very often is Breath of the Wild.
They are definitely trying to do that.
I mean, it is blatantly obvious that Sonic Team loves them some Breath of the Wild. Like, the character models in this, like, the way that the interactions happen, the explosions, the open world stuff, how there are just creatures flying in the sky just that you can discover and you can get on and ride. Like, you can just tell they're like, we're gonna do an open world for Sonic, and we're gonna try to do it the way that they did it with Breath of the Wild. And I would actually argue that the open world in this has far more to do than Breath of the Wild's open world does. It's not just this empty wasteland where there's no stuff. The problem is it's very bizarre just plopping little pieces of Sonic levels down onto the ground. Like, I've found, like, a lot of this, my time spent playing this game, once you get further into it and it gets a little more challenging, because it's really easy at first. Once you get a little further into it, a little more challenging, you're constantly looking for that one bumper that will send you up to where you need to get to. I found a lot of my time playing this game is tipping the camera up, so I'm looking down on the ground, and then just running around as fast as I can, trying to find that one thing that will pop you up to that rail or that building in the sky where there's like a whole network of roller coaster things that you can go on. I don't know that Sonic works in the open world. The other problem too is that, like, I've found that things are designed to go one way. So you come across like a rail, you hop on it, you start grinding along, you get to the end and you hit a bumper that sends you back the other direction. Like, and if you find the lines, it's almost like a skateboarding game in some ways, where you find the line. You're like, okay, here's like a speed pad. If I hit this, it sends me directly onto this rail, which then sends me off of the rail through these hoops that will send me into the sky, which will get me onto another roller coaster rail, which will take me up into the stratosphere to this other building I didn't even know was there. Like, when that happens, it works. But if you're running against the grain, against the design, it is annoying AF.
Yeah, there's kind of two ways you traverse each section area of the game, and that's sort of like as you are moving into it, everything's sort of aligned so you can find those lines and find those places. And if you backtrack, you can kind of like work your way around like that, but you kind of accept that you're going to be going against the grain a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is fine for the most part. For me, I think it's a weird game in the sense that it over communicates some things and not others.
Yeah.
Like there's things where it goes on and on about all these certain moves you can do, and then at no point does it explain exactly what the red hearts are.
Right.
You're like,
it doesn't have to though, because an icon will pop up to tell you where to take it like immediately. Like,
right. But like
you're collecting all this crap. None of it makes any sense for why you're collecting it or where you're taking it.
But also the visuals don't communicate what it like you collect the heart things. You get tons of them.
Yeah.
And then when you run into characters and things, you use the hearts to talk to them.
Yeah.
And when you do that, Sonic like holds his hand out and a bunch of hearts pop out of him and flow into the other character, and then a cutscene starts. Yeah. And I figured I was using my hearts up doing that, but it turns out you're not.
Yeah.
Because the total stays the same. So what does that cutscene mean?
I think you're trying to make the character that you're giving the hearts to become a part of the real world and bring them out of the cyber world.
But you don't give them hearts. You still have the same number of hearts you had before.
There's just a cutscene
so what does
showing,
that mean?
I don't know.
And stuff like that. It's just like what is that? You have so many things you collect. I think there's like 7 things you collect overall. It's like there's the blue seeds and the red seeds and the little not chow things and the heart things and the rings, and I think there's another thing that upgrades
like the gear thing.
Yeah, it's just on and on and on and on. And then the shards, which then let you upgrade your skill tree, and it's a lot. And then the UI isn't bad, but it's boring. Like you go to the UI where it shows it's like the main game is sort of like, oh, it's these things and all these roller coasters and Sonic's running around at super speed and you go to the main menu and it's like a spreadsheet.
Yeah,
it's like it does not feel like it fits at all. But I will say this. One of the other things, when you beat big enemies or various things, you get these gears, like these cogs, and you plug those into these temples, and they unlock Sonic levels,
the
like
fun levels.
levels. And some of these Sonic levels are fucking bangers.
Yeah, they're good.
A couple of these are really, really good.
It still does have the same problem though. Like the camera doesn't keep up. I found myself like trying to adjust the camera while I'm going around turns because it's not showing me like a good enough angle.
I rarely do that in the actual levels.
Really?
I do it in.
I found myself doing that a lot. And then when I go around a turn, I end up getting caught on like a piece of geometry on the curve. Like
there's one level where it's a sharp turn at the beginning that I've never figured out how to navigate it
without
properly,
stopping,
without running against the wall.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some way to do it.
But I run it a few. I do run them a few times to get all the every objective. There's 4 objectives on every one, and I think it's finish the level, finish with the S rank time. Finish with a certain number of rings, which varies per level, and find all. I think it's 6 red rings, which are basically like red coins. And
they encourage you to play it over and over and get the S rank.
And I usually do that for each of them. And I will say, once you kind of know the level well enough to get through it in S rank time, like that's some good Sonic.
Yeah,
like there's a couple of them that I was like, this is as good as 3D Sonic gets. Really.
I thought some of the
and a couple of the levels are 2D.
They are,
They're just side
or
scrollers.
some of them are mixed. They're 3D
back
and 2D.
forth. Like, if you liked that kind of thing in Sonic Generations, like, this is as good as they've gotten since then. Like, there's some good stuff in here.
Yep, I agree. But there's not enough of it.
No, it's few and far between. I think the first island takes hours to complete, and I think there's 7 Sonic levels to find in that.
Yeah.
So there's actually a lot of Sonic levels for a full game. But there's been other games where you got 4.
They're short though. I mean, they last like a minute or whatever.
But that's the problem.
That's the problem with Sonic. All the work for 1 minute of fun.
Yeah, you do all that, the same amount of work for any other game's level, but everybody gets through it in 50 seconds.
It's rough.
It
is rough,
and that's expensive.
Yeah,
like, that costs a lot of money. But they kind of found a way around it here by also having the open world.
Now, at first, I really liked the open world because you can. Here's the other thing too: the tone of the game when you're in the open world is completely different from any Sonic game ever. Like the music is like ambient, like downbeat, or like really chill, like trance.
Yeah,
or
it's weirdly melancholy.
It is. It's like almost depressing, the music. But I found like
it's like a game made out of the feelings of playing other Sonic games.
That's a great line. That is 100% on the money. But the music is great. Like, I really enjoy it. And so at first, I really liked just playing around in the open world because unlike Breath of the Wild, there's something to do like every 30 feet. The problem is, the more you play it, the more you realize it's the same like 3 things.
Yeah, it has a Mario Odyssey problem where every reward starts to feel the same no matter what you do to get it.
But it's what you do to get it that's the same too. There's like, okay, get from here to this pad before the timer runs out. There's trace a circle around these enemies or around these objects.
Oh, it loves that trace a circle move.
And I'll be honest with you, it feels good. I like doing it.
It does.
But you do it like a million times. Like, there's like 3 or 4 things that you do in the open world other than just like trying to figure out how to traverse like the roller coaster stuff that you just do over and over again. So this is one of those games where the more I played it, the less I enjoyed the open world and the more I thirsted for these types of levels right here. And as you pointed out, there aren't as many as you want. And when you do play them, they last like 50 seconds. That's not even exaggerating. That's really
right there, 50 seconds.
Yeah, that's really how long like they last.
And that's a B time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you do better.
Exactly.
Now, to be fair, that's the first one. Like, some of them are more involved.
Oh, yeah.
And, like,
some of them are hard.
They're real good.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I do like the open world well enough. Like, it's a very good podcast game. Like, you will never run out of weird open world little tidbit
because you also don't really care what they're saying.
No.
Like, I played the first 3 hours with the audio on, and I was like, I feel like I'm losing IQ points listening to this game.
Well, the voice
I just turned it off.
The voice acting is A, terrible, and B, I don't agree with a single casting choice in this game except Robotnik. No one sounds right, like as the character. Like,
but the
Sonic's voice
are all crappy.
Sonic's
and
voice is bizarre. Like, I don't know why you picked that voice for him.
The story's dumb. The cutscenes are crappy. Like, the graphics aren't great. Like, we were talking last week about Bayonetta 3, about how crappy the enemies were in that game. Well,
yeah, this is another.
Sonic Frontier says, "Hold my beer," because
even like, you know, at least the old Sonic enemies did not have a personality problem, and these guys do, and that's part of the plot. But the other thing, of course, is, you know, when you're not rolling around at the speed of sound, as Sonic Adventure 2 would say, the game controls like a squirrel on rabies.
It's still crap.
Like, it's and when you have to actually be precise about things, which is usually happening during like a boss battle. Yeah, it's infuriating.
Dude, like the camera too. Like
the boss fights in this game are trash.
They are trash.
Like,
they're awful.
And they're not. Some of it feels unfinished. Like like the first one you meet is the big guy. You know, the big thing with the 3 tentacles that smashes thing down, and you have to climb up the tentacle. And like, I've ended up inside the tentacle. I've ended up clipping through the tentacle. I've ended up clipping through the body. I've ended up under the ground. I've had to restart. I've had the game crash. Like, there is you cannot depend on the gameplay to do what you expect it to do in the fights in this game at all.
Well, the problem is,
and they know it because the parry is just hold. There's no timing on the parry. Yeah. Which is like, I'm like, oh, so you know your combat's shit.
Well, the problem is, anytime you hit like a bumper or a ring that you fly through, the camera wants to go top down. Mm-hmm. But the problem is sometimes it just happens accidentally, and the camera goes top down. And you're like, no, I still need to see behind my character or whatever. This game is not done, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah, the boss battles feel unfinished.
A good part of it to me feels unfinished.
I don't think I'd go that far. The combat feels like it was never fully baked. That's my main thing. And usually the combat doesn't matter. Like, even fight like a mini fight like this thing, like, not too bad. Once you power up a little bit, you can.
There's like Breath of the Wild art stuff.
Once you power up a little bit, like, most of this combat is trivial. Yeah. But like, when you're fighting like a mini boss or a big boss, like, a lot of it is just like, it's not you versus the enemy. It's you versus the camera, and whether the game agrees that you're holding the same direction on the analog stick that you think you are. Yeah. And you can get screwed up by things that can.
Or trying to jump like onto a platform, like the angle. You're like, okay, now I need the top down angle, but no. You hit this bumper, and it's behind Sonic while he's careening towards this platform, and like, judging the distance and landing on the platform is like impossible.
Yeah. Well, then like it depends when they're going to show you, like, that thing there. Like, that's a minor example, but it rockets you up. Yep. And instead of tilting down to show you what you're about to hit, because once you get up to the top of that jump that you just did up that little rail, you have to move forward with the boost button to hit that ring, and then move forward to get the rest of the stuff. And you don't know that ring's there until you pop up in front of it. And by the time you realize, oh, I got to hit the right trigger, you start falling already. Like, it does that constantly. It does it constantly. And then you got to go do it again. And then you get it right the second time, but it constantly is not showing you the situation you're about to have to deal with. So you have to memorize these tracks.
Yeah.
And then go back in. And like, look, it's not a bad game. It's fine.
I think it's borderline bad.
I don't say. I don't think
it's
so.
right on the fringe.
I don't think it's that bad. I think it's fine. It's okay. The thing is, I'm going to give it a little bit of leeway because it's trying something.
It is.
It's trying to do something. And so many. I can't remember the last Sonic game that didn't just feel like they just needed to get something out the door.
Right.
And they're trying to do something interesting here, and they don't really achieve it.
I thought they did it first.
Yeah,
when I first started playing it, I was like, hot damn, like, I like this open world. And, like, I don't have to walk, like, 2 miles to find something else to do. But then you start to realize that's all there is.
But I do think that, I think I've come out the other side of that disillusionment, and you haven't, where I'm like, I've kind of accepted what it is.
Oh, okay.
And now I kind of back to, like, this is kind of, I mean, obviously it's not going to stop me from playing God of War. But, like, it's not bad. You know, they're trying something here, and I kind of like what they're after. I
appreciate the effort,
and I wish they'd gotten closer to what they were trying to get. And it's a little weirdly too complicated control-wise, where it's like, okay, there's a different button that jumps, that dashes, that attacks, that homes in, and another button that does, like, you can do the light dash along the rings, but that's another button. Like you got to remember a lot of controls.
You start unlocking attacks as well. Like, once I got this kick attack, like, all the combat just became a joke.
Yeah, well, I have the Sonic Boom attack where you hold left trigger and he just, like, backs away and does, like, a 40-hit combo with, like, shooting little energy arrows.
Yep.
Kills everything. Like, the first boss, like, when you fight those guys again, you know, one of the difficult things is to kill little towers at the top. They got force fields around them.
Yep.
But with that move, I just do that.
Stay in place.
It's over.
Yeah.
Like everything becomes trivial after a while.
Yeah. The combat became really easy. The game at first is really easy. Like, I didn't really have any problems like getting through any parts of the combat or the boss fights or anything like that. It does get a little more challenging as you go, but
yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, the open world has a fog of war, and as you complete objectives in the open world, that pulls back the fog.
Yeah, and sometimes you cannot find the thing that finishes off the map in certain areas.
Yeah.
And there's one part early on that still has gaps in it, and I don't know what that's about.
What you need to do
I don't know. Maybe the final gaps fill in when you get all of them for the main island.
It's possible. We never even talked about the story in this. Does it matter?
No.
Like, Dr. Eggman and Sonic's crew gets trapped in cyberspace.
Trapped in a digital world with cyberspace, which is why everything's
little critters called the Cocos or what. Again, the characters in this, like the Cocos, straight out of Breath of the Wild. Well, they literally look like they were ripped out of Breath of the Wild.
Korok, Coco. Yep. They also have a little bit of Chow going on.
Yep. There are chows. Like, you end up collecting these chows that are all over. Like, you end up having a little army that follows you around after a while.
Yeah, those are the Cocos.
Yeah.
And, like, that was also confusing because they just sit around the world and you can, like, pick them up. But if you hold still too long, all the ones you've collected pop out and say hello to you. And I'm like, do I need to collect you? Do I lose
There's like
them?
50 of them sitting there.
Well, because normally when something pops out of Sonic, it means you lost it.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, did I lose this guy? I need to collect him again? No, I guess he was sitting there. It was very weird.
Yeah.
The game has a weird thing where it doesn't communicate very effectively sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, there's that, and that's how you power some stuff up and think it's. Like I said, there's too much to collect in this game. There's too many different. It's like Star Fox Adventures. It's just like there's too many grievances.
The game also, I don't think, looks very good. The draw-in this is the worst, like, LOD I've seen in a video game in a really, really long time. And in this game, it matters because you literally see, like, the roller coaster parts drawing in before your eyes. Like, all the foliage on the ground draws in. Like, this engine is not built for this, I don't think. And the funny part I noticed, too, is when you boot the game up, one of the middleware programs they use for this is just for LOD. Mm-hmm. I had never heard of it before, but it's called, like, Total LOD or something like that. I'm like, this is not a glowing endorsement for your middleware, this game. Like, it's bad. Like, in Sonic, I
didn't notice it that much.
Oh, man. There's some scenes in this B-roll where you can just literally see all the detail in a wave just appearing across the environments as Sonic moves. Like, it's bad. Like, the railways and the stuff in the sky, they all appear. You haven't seen that?
Sometimes, but I haven't noticed it that much.
Wow. It's jarring to me. Like, it affects gameplay for me.
I've never had that affect gameplay for me.
I'm playing PS5. I don't know if that matters.
I'm on Series X. I don't know if there's a difference there.
It could be.
I have not watched any digital foundry on this game, if they in fact have even wasted their time doing that. I don't know.
But the Sonic character model looks like a character model from like last gen. Like he should look like crazy detailed.
Should
with
he?
like awesome fur shading and like.
Should he? Like I don't think these characters
should look almost
like
as good as he does in the films. He looks literally like almost like an Xbox 360 character model. I think
that's intentional. I think they want them to look like cartoons.
It's possible.
But
he just stands out with because you're in this realistic environment and it's this weird cartoonish like flat shaded.
Yeah, but all the characters look like that.
I know, but I just don't think it's a good stylistic choice if that's even what it is.
I don't know. I don't care about that. I think Sonic just looks like Sonic. I
think he looks bad in the cutscenes, but the cutscenes and the story is so bad. Does that matter?
Like there's parts in the cutscenes where he's in the middle of talking and he moves around and his feet are just sliding around on the ground like they aren't connected to anything. Like the cutscenes are terrible.
They are terrible.
But I don't know. I think he looks fine. Like he looks like Sonic. They're cartoons. They've never gone for detail on these things. I think
comparing him to other games, it's just he's not up to scratch. Like it's just not a good character model.
He looks like Mario. Like Mario doesn't have perfect.
He looks better than Sonic in this game. Even on Switch, he even looks better.
I don't know. He might from going forward because I think that movie's going to change some stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of what people expect from fidelity.
I was really surprised how much like Breath of the Wild this game was. It caught me off guard. Like I was like, wow, man. Like it's almost shameless how much they rip off as far as like the style and like the architecture and the character model. Like the bad guys in this could have literally been ripped right out of Breath of the Wild. I never would have said, no, that doesn't match. Like, it's kind of surprising. This feels like the Me Too Sonic game. Like, okay, people have complained that we've been trapped in, like, 2010 or whatever. Like, all right.
Now we're trapped in 2017.
Pretty much.
Like that?
Pretty much. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Yeah. But that's how far behind this franchise has been. So I agree with you. I am glad to see that they are making positive changes in a new direction, like it needed it, but it's the execution just still isn't.
No, it's not. Nothing is fully realized here.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, actually.
There's another thing that confuses. So, like, one of the things you're doing is you're going around collecting the Chaos Emeralds out of these big contraptions that hold them in it, right? But if you complete some of these quests you have to do, you get little emeralds at the end of that, too. So are those Chaos Emeralds?
I don't even know.
Because aren't there 7 of them?
I tuned out after a while, Matt, because there are so many collectibles. Here, I think this is the scene where you can start to see the LOD. You can see it right there. See the LOD, the line there? Watch it. See the shadows popping in?
Oh, yeah, but that's a cutscene.
Look at the line of LOD, though. See that?
Yeah.
You didn't notice that while you were playing it?
I noticed it during this cutscene. I don't really notice it while I'm playing. No.
Wow. Okay, maybe it is PS5 then. Maybe there's just something weird with the hardware. But here's the thing, Matt. I have had fun with this, and I have actually played it for a good while already. So if I had paid full price for this, like, I don't know that I would regret it all that much.
I think if you're a Sonic fan, you're going to forgive a lot of the flaws. I think it's probably not a bad buy.
If you're not, though, I probably would struggle to tell someone to buy this at full price.
Yeah, I don't think this is for, like, your average, casual Sonic enjoyer necessarily. Also, the good news is I'm pretty sure this thing's going to drop like a rock by next spring, so you can probably get this pretty
because cheap. You know that retailers ordered a ton of these, and I'm honestly surprised at the review scores. Its Metacritic is way off. Like, it's way too high. I don't know what these people were thinking when they played this game. Like,
what did it get critically?
I mean, the last time I looked at its Metacritic, it was at like 8 or something like that, and I was like, dude,
that's ridiculous.
It's nowhere near an 8. Like,
this is like, okay, see, exactly. Like, why doesn't that bounce you up reliably to the level you need to be at?
It's so annoying.
All the time.
And then I just clipped through it and just started attacking.
The boss fights are
garbage.
Just garbage. They are unfinished on a level that is hard to put into words until you really have to struggle with it.
Yeah.
And also, you got, like, there's things like this. Like, so these are the little Chow equivalents, basically. There's a quest in here where, like, you are supposed to rescue one and rescue a bunch of them and return them to their mother, and the mother picks one of them out of the thing, and they kind of do this little dance, and then they die.
I didn't see that.
They're like souls leave their bodies, and they fall over unanimated, and the others are like, "Oh,
really?"
And Amy and Sonic are like,
"I missed
what
that.
the fuck was that?" And Sonic's
and
Amy's like, "It felt like they were done." And Sonic's like, "I'm gonna go." And it was just so weird. Like it's. Like, I don't know what... Like the tone on this game is all over the damn place.
Ashes in the Hourglass says the Metacritic is at 72 now.
That's
a little more in the realm of reality.
Like, I would probably give this like a 7 if I was having a really good day. Like, if I was feeling very generous.
I would have given this a 7 after I played the first 2 hours of it. Mm-hmm. And then the more I played it, the worse it became, and the less I enjoyed it. Because the open world became very monotonous, and I didn't enjoy playing in the open world anymore. The other thing, too, is as you start going to, like, new areas, they all look the same!
He does have a lot of detail in his glove.
Yeah. His glove, there's the one cutscene shows his glove with, like, water dripping on it.
His clothes do have detail, but he just doesn't.
Well, there's another scene, too, and I don't know if I can find it, sorting through this real quickly, where it's raining, and, like... The rain bouncing off... Yeah, actually, I found it right there. Perfect. Look at the rain bouncing off of him, but then look at the actual rain itself. Like, it doesn't match. It's like... I don't know, man. This game is not
It feels
great.
like a bunch of separate teams kind of...
It does.
Pushing their
I got this part
together.
done. Let's snap it together. There's the gloves.
Yeah.
They show look at the water dropping on the glove.
That's one effect you could use over and over again. Yes, that's... Also, how weird is it? Like, I always think it's weird. You know, there's a reason cartoon characters with the
It looks like they're static on his head instead of
the
rain.
old style gloves are usually drawn with 4 fingers instead of 5.
Yeah.
And like, there you go, because otherwise the hands look weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I recently learned that his feet under the shoes are blue. Like,
oh, really?
All blue, and I don't like that.
Does that bother you?
I don't. For some reason, that bothers me. Yeah.
Well, I don't say that I regret playing it.
No,
like I've had some fun with it.
It's the best Sonic game since like Generations. Like it's for whatever that's worth.
Yeah,
it's the best Sonic game in a very long time. But what is that really saying?
Not a lot.
Right.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I am glad that they are taking it in a new direction.
Yeah. I would like to see them
maybe
continue
in a couple
to patch.
Entries they have something.
Yeah, I'd
really
like to
good.
see them continue to patch it and try to firm this up. I bet
it sounds like they are. The director was like...
The director was very forthcoming.
The game has a long way to go. It's like, dude, you released it.
Yeah, you're charging people $70 for this thing. Like, what are you doing?
We're in the upside down world.
Like a Frontiers 2 would probably be pretty solid.
Yeah,
you're getting they got something here. It's just not done.
It's not there yet.
It's got a very doughy center. But the crust is good.
It is.
Like you've almost learned how to make bread.
Yeah, that's like the first bite tastes pretty good. Then you keep biting into it.
In the middle, it's just like, oh no, that's just dough. That's.
Yep.
Did you have this was in the oven for what, like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
It's.
I'm interested to see what you guys are saying about this game. I know we have a lot of Sonic fans on Sifted. People who really like all the Sonic games. Like the last couple, they really like them. So we might be a bit on an island here with this game. Vincent says the problem with fidelity is that Sonic sells the most on Nintendo platforms, so everything has to be built considering those deficiencies. That's true.
There's some of that, yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on.
I am very curious about what happens with going forward, because I saw Black Panther last Thursday, and they ran the Super Mario movie trailer in front of it, and holy shit, that audience reacted.
Like,
that movie's going to be a hit.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
The last time I saw an audience react like that at that theater was Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah.
When they first ran the first teaser for that. And so I think that Mario movie is going to be a giant hit. And I think it's going to change expectations of what a Mario game is supposed to look like. And I wonder how Nintendo's going to react to that, because you accidentally just showed us what a Mario would look like on modern hardware. People are going to expect that now. So I don't know.
Vincent, would you rather have Sonic Generations 2 or Sonic Frontiers 2? I think I would say Frontiers 2.
Yeah, I would say Frontiers 2.
Because at least it's heading in a better direction, even if it's not quite there
and
yet.
I do like the open world stuff for more or less what it is. despite how sort of samey and inconsequential a lot of it is, just because it's fun to find the little routes and the little lines and the little like, oh, this led me over. Yeah, sometimes you get on the rail.
It's a little bit like a skateboarding game, like a Tony Hawk
sometimes you get on the
game.
rail and you run over 2 rails in a ring and you get some rings and a heart at the end of it. Sometimes you find a fucking temple in the sky.
I've gone way up into the sky.
It's like I like that element of surprise and that sort of like that element of discovery in a way that no other open world game really does, because that's very particularly Sonic.
It has caught me off guard a couple times. El Guapo 3385 Sonic Frontiers soundtrack is fire. It is. It's an amazing soundtrack. It is very good. Like, it is probably worth buying, I would say. I was surprised by that because I typically hate the music in Sonic games because it's always butt rock, and I hate that music. I know some people love it, but
the one thing I guess the best thing I can say about Sonic Frontiers in a lot of ways is there's not outside of the story, but that's just Sonic. There's not an element of the game that I look at and say, why would you choose to do it that way? Because everything, like if those boss battles were playably finished, they would be really cool. Yeah. They would be very Shadow of the Colossus-y a little bit.
Yeah.
If the drawing distance and the stuff you find in the open world had more consequential rewards, they would be awesome. If if the fighting had more bite to it and he didn't control like a squirrely like a rabid squirrel covered in grease, it would be really cool. Like everything they're trying to do is a good idea.
Yep.
It's the opposite of Gotham Knights. It's like everything they're trying to do is a good idea. They just didn't get there.
They didn't execute it well.
So keep going. I think this is a winner set of ideas. It's just the execution just isn't there yet.
And hopefully next time it will be, because they've worked out a lot of the kinks.
There's nothing here that says to me this can never work.
Yeah.
It's just you need to give it more time, or you need to give it whatever, more care. Yeah. And I'm sure some of that was just like I'm sure they used a lot of time up in development trying to find all this stuff.
Yeah.
They really did go back to the drawing board on Sonic here, and so applause for that.
Yep.
But yeah, now you got to actually do it.
Yeah. Barry Lomax, thank you for Twitch Prime. Saw you in there. Saw you jumped in. Andy T. Monahan says the director did come out and say the game has a long ways to go.
Yeah,
he did.
Sure it does.
It's like, I don't know why you would say that. Ashes in the Hourglass says it's already $40. It was $40 last weekend.
Wow.
Very Gooster says last weekend it was $40. Oh man, that's bad. But I figured that would happen because they were going to order a ton of them, and they'll figure out very quickly whether people are buying them at the rate they need them to buy them. So
maybe they want to try. Yeah. Time to do God of War. Time to do Hog of War.
Yep. Question from Sneaky: do you think they wanted to delay it but had to get it out, so now the finished game will be in a few months after a lot of patches? Probably.
That seems to be where they're headed.
They needed the kid sales for Christmas. Yeah. Like, look, I have my sister and my brother-in-law, like, their kids love Sonic, and so for Christmas they just buy everything Sonic, and they will buy this game. I know they will. They will ask
Sonic
me
is
after
huge.
They buy it whether they should have bought it.
Those movies really, really did
a lot
bring him way up, and like you can see why Nintendo got on the movie train after that, because I hear kids in stores talk about Sonic just randomly now, and that did not happen 3 years ago.
Yeah,
like
kids are gonna want it, so it'll still sell pretty well, which is good because that means that they'll be validated and they'll be like, okay, this open world thing is what people want, and
a kid is gonna see this as like it's gonna feel like an adult game to him.
Yeah,
like a grown-up
in a lot
game.
of ways.
It's gonna look like the stuff their dads and moms play.
That's true. Yep, that's a good point. So there you go, the Sonic Frontiers. That's I would actually say it's hard to say whether someone should buy it. I would honestly only recommend this for adult Sonic fans.
You know if you're gonna buy it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you probably do know. And you don't care what Matt and I say about it. You're gonna think it's awesome no matter what.
Yeah, if there's a question in your mind whether or not to buy this, don't.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you already bought it.
Yeah.
So
one final question from Cinetyke. And this is related to our show we have called New Dimension. He asks, does Sonic still suffer from the transition between 2D to 3D to this day? When we did that episode, we did a Sonic episode of New Dimension. I think we were a little pessimistic on the idea of it working, and I think we ended up maybe being a little bit wrong. I think they executed it better than maybe we thought when we did New Dimension, but it's still a hurdle to overcome.
The problem is that, first off, the issue of the speed gimmick translating to 3D is difficult because, as we said, you build this level for all this time and money, and people get through it like in a split second. Yep. But the other problem with the transition from 2D to 3D that Sonic had was that Sonic was never in 2D. Sonic was never really about going fast.
Yeah.
Sonic was a hard as nails fucking platform.
It was hard, yeah.
Once you get past that first level in the Genesis games, you were hardcore platforming. The Marble Hill Zone is all platforming.
Yeah.
Like, it is all dodging traps, getting over spikes. You know, you don't run fast in almost anything in that section. And some of that was like, some of that was public, like customer misconception. Like, you thought of it because the marketing said he's super fast. His name is Sonic. Da da da. And you thought of him as a speedster and that kind of thing. But it didn't really happen in the games all often. Also, 2D is a terrible medium for that because you can't see what's coming.
Yeah.
So this going fast in Sonic was always sort of either trusting you were going to be able to react to things, or you knew the level already.
Or you just held left and crossed your fingers.
Happened. Right.
Or held right, sorry.
But like... So the transition to 3D was rough because you couldn't... The games, Sonic Adventure, it wasn't precise and well made enough to do precise 3D platforming the way Mario 64 had done it. Mm-hmm. But when you did the super fast levels, they were over too fast.
Yeah.
So...
And this game still has the problem, too, of, like, when you slow it down and you try to be precise, it all falls apart. Yeah.
Like, in a way that Mario doesn't.
Yeah.
The way that they've figured that out. Whereas, like, Sonic's jumps have to be so variable that you can never trust exactly how far he will jump. Yep. Because sometimes he's got to jump like half a mile.
No, it's true.
And sometimes you're trying to jump on that one stupid platform and he's just hopping over shit. You can't, and the camera's not built to help you do that kind of platforming because it also has to take in all this wide. And that's been a problem for Sonic going way back.
And I don't know if they'll ever solve that.
I don't know. You can't have Sonic. The problem is what they'd established Sonic can do, both in the original games and in the lore. As soon as you put all that into an actual game that lets him do all those things, you are basically mashing 3 different gameplay styles together that never gel properly.
That never probably will. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a challenge.
One of the things that Nintendo was smart about when it came to bringing Mario into the modern day and into the 3D and moving forward is they don't give a shit what happened in the comics and cartoons.
Yeah, they just ignore it. Yeah.
They just make the gameplay fit the gameplay.
Yep.
Sonic always tries
the way it should be done.
Sonic always tries to incorporate the fandom's expectations.
Yep.
And most of the fandom expectations about Sonic come from non-gaming sources.
Yeah.
And that is difficult. And trying to please those people, because that's your core Sonic fan base, and trying to make them good games are almost an impossible dichotomy.
It is. You're right.
So I think that's Sonic's problem. It's not just the 2D to 3D translation. It's what ended up making Sonic's fandom most interested and excited versus what most other video game characters' fandoms are based. Because most other video game fandoms are based around the games first.
The actual games.
And Sonic's fans, if you look at their reactions to this game and their reaction to other things and what they talk about the lore. They talk about the Archie comic.
Or they talk about the films.
Or the films. Or the SatAM. The cartoons. Like, the games were more or less just there as vehicles for that. Whereas the characters were not characters in the games, really, until much later, until the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of those kids that grew up in the 90s with it, if you wanted personalities and know who these characters were, you read the comic books and you watched the shows. Yeah. And that's where that comes from, and that's the basis of modern Sonic fandom, and that is very hard to balance in a video game now.
It is, yep. So there you go. I guess we're pretty much just recommending it for Sonic fans. Everybody else, I mean, if it's down to $40, what would you say someone else should pay for it?
Oh, 40 is a great price for it, I think.
I'm cool with $40. Yeah, if you can find it for that, pick it up. And I do think they'll keep working on it, because they have to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
it's Sonic.
Yeah, you got to keep
There's nothing bigger to Sega than Sonic.
Going.
So they'll keep working on it and it'll keep getting better.
I'd pay $40 just for the Sonic levels in this.
Yeah.
If you're just going to
Soundtracks were $10 in my opinion.
Great.
Soundtracks that freaking good. They should give you an option when you buy a game on disc that you get the soundtrack like on the disc somehow.
Yeah. But I'm just maybe part of my forgiveness level to this game is just that how many times I've played the Sonic stages from the towers and finished them and been like, that was a really good Sonic level.
There is a lot of them. Yep. They did a good job on it. For sure. Okay, it's time to move along. We're going to talk next about a game that I don't think Matt has played at all.
I have not.
And I've finished it already, and that's not any big feat because it takes about 6 hours to finish the campaign.
I know nothing about this game except the memes.
Okay. What are the memes?
Everybody thinks Ghost looks stupid.
He does kind of look stupid. They're not wrong about that.
My favorite, I saw one today that was my favorite. It's him in the car with the skull mask on, like looking at you with those fucking eyes.
It's weird.
And the caption is when your friend logs off and you're left with the guy he introduced you to in the game 2 hours ago who says he'll still be on for a while. And I'm like, yeah,
That's a good one. That's true. He is weird. They try to shoehorn him into all these situations where some dude should not be wearing a skull mask.
No.
He's just like, whoa.
And he's just still got it on.
And no
one says anything.
Because they realize he's the poster boy for the Modern Warfare IP. He is the guy. And look, this game is kind of like an all-star cast. It has all the big names, all the big people.
Yeah, if COD was in Smash Brothers, you would play as Ghost.
And first thing I should mention, you guys probably already know this. This is not a remake or a remaster of the original Modern Warfare 2. It is a sequel of what was also not a remake or a remaster of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It is a direct sequel to that. It has a lot of the same characters that you remember from the first Modern Warfare 2, but the plot is completely different. There are some scenarios that are uncomfortably similar to the original game. Some of that, I think, is just them saying, okay, this is a nod to a mission that people really liked. But otherwise, this is a brand new standalone game. It just has the same title, except the 2 are Roman numerals instead of the number 2.
And that's totally different.
It's amazing, totally different.
That's how you optimize a search engine.
Why aren't they doing this, Matt?
Because they have no other ideas.
That's weird.
They don't have any other ideas. And they just want to use titles that people recognize.
It's so weird. It's so it gotta be confusing to people.
Maybe.
The original Modern Warfare 2 now is how old? It's
the first one's 15 years old this year.
Yeah, so
2007.
So that one's probably 12
that was 2 years later.
13 years
so
old.
it was
something like that.
13 years ago.
Yeah, which is a little weird all on its own, but. As you guys know, I would consider myself a Call of Duty expert. I have played pretty much all of them ad nauseum. Mm-hmm. I spent a lot of time on the multiplayer components in these games. I already discussed the multiplayer in Modern Warfare 2 from the beta.
It sure looks nice.
It is pretty.
What was the city that you go to? Is it Amsterdam?
Eventually. There's some B-roll of Amsterdam. Yeah, and Amsterdam literally looks photorealistic.
Yeah, I would love to go poke around that Amsterdam without having to play Call of Duty.
Right. Because some of the locations in this almost are photorealistic. It's pretty crazy, honestly, what they do with this game in some cases. So, again, this is a direct sequel to the Modern Warfare reboot from 2019. The campaign is set in the year 2022. It follows Task Force 141. There's 17 missions that you play through. Generally, my experience with this campaign, it has been the best of times, and it has been the worst of times. But the way that they've mixed the missions together, there's never 2 bad missions in a row. I don't know if they realized that, they had great missions and bad missions, and they just were we'll just go take turns here, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. But that's kind of how the game is. So you never get to the point where I was with the reboot of the first Modern Warfare from 2019, where I got about halfway through the campaign, and I didn't care anymore. I had to drag my ass through that campaign hard. The tone was all off. It was just weird. This campaign is way better. And now, I will say, not every Call of Duty has a campaign anymore, so it's hard to really compare them anymore. But this is the best Call of Duty campaign I have played in quite a while. There are some missions that a lot of thought went into, and it reminds me a little bit of Black Ops 2, which is one of my favorite Call of Duties ever. The variety in the campaign in this is impressive. You never know what you're going to be doing next, and sometimes that's for the good, and sometimes that's for the bad, because sometimes they make you do some stuff that you don't really want to do once or indefinitely, not twice. As I said, it took me 5 or 6 hours to finish this, so it's not a huge commitment. As I said, some of the missions are inspired by fan favorites from prior Modern Warfare games, but they're not direct ripoffs. And basically how I've decided to split this discussion is I want to split it by bad missions and good missions. And I'm going to start with the bad missions first because I want you to remember exactly, dude. Exactly. You see what I'm saying? Bro, you don't need the skull mask right now. We're just hanging out on the tarmac.
It's a debriefing. Take the fucking hat off. Come on. What are you, the Taskmaster? Give me a break. Yo, Ghost Rider, get over here.
So anyway, I want to go through the bad missions first and then the best missions second because I want to leave you with a positive impression of this game because I liked the campaign. The worst missions. One of the missions in Amsterdam sucks. Now, the city looks amazing, but when you first get there, they put you in, the water at night. And you have to swim underwater and then pop up out of the water and, kill the guys who are on the docks. They can see no matter where you are, no matter how dark it is, no matter how deep in the water you are, they can see you and they can shoot you. And that drove me bonkers. It ended up becoming like this crazy trial and error thing that I absolutely hated. There's a car chase mission called Violence and Timing, and you are actually piloting a vehicle. You actually pilot multiple vehicles because the objective is to keep jumping from one vehicle to the next because there's a lead vehicle in the convoy that is dropping mines on the road. And eventually your vehicle will blow up and you'll have to transfer to another vehicle. The mechanics for going from one vehicle to another are just flat out broken. Like, you can't rely on them at all. Like, you'll pull up next to a car, you'll go to transfer to the other car, suddenly your car will stop moving. Or sometimes it will just automatically go the same exact speed as the car you're trying to get to. There's no rhyme or reason. It drove me bonkers. I had to try it multiple times. It was one of the most broken missions I have ever played in a Call of Duty campaign. Ever. I could not believe that they left it in the game. It should have been cut. It wasn't. It's annoying AF. There's another mission where and it's kind of funny, you jump over Trump's Mexico-U.S. border wall. That's how it starts. You climb over the wall, and you go into Mexico. And then this mission is a mission where you don't know if people are good guys or bad guys. So you go into a house, and there's like a family hanging out inside the house, but you don't know whether they actually want to kill you or not. So you don't shoot them. You have to hold the gun on them, and then eventually they get scared enough to reveal whether they're like good guys or bad guys. It just becomes annoying. And then it's like...
Also, that's like horrible.
It is horrible.
Yes.
Well,
okay.
It is a Call of Duty campaign, and it is known for horrible things, although there's nothing truly terrible in this. There's no Russian in this. Although...
I heard there's a part where you have to shoot people off the wall.
Off the wall.
It was like there's a section people talking about like where you hold like some of the people at gunpoint to find out if they're bad or not, and then like when actual Mexican immigrants show up, you just shoot at them.
Eventually, you figure out that they're all in the cartel, and you have to kill them. But it wasn't like you're killing innocents. At least I didn't feel that way. Maybe I missed something.
I don't know. I'll never know. I'm not going to play any of this.
But I will say this. There's nothing as egregious or that makes you feel terrible about yourself like No Russian in this. Although at the end...
No Russian didn't make me feel terrible.
It didn't?
Not really. I mean, I didn't shoot a lot of people, no.
Oh, I didn't really either. But you have to eventually.
Well, you got to shoot like the bad guy at the end. But then they shoot you. You can go through No Russian without killing any innocent people.
No, I don't think you can.
Yeah, you can.
Really?
I mean, eventually...
I thought you always have had to... Or they would end. No. They'd shoot you if you didn't kill people.
No. At the end, they shoot you no matter what.
I don't remember. Well, yeah, when you try to get in the van,
at a certain point, they have to start fighting the guys who show up with guns.
Yeah.
But you do not have to shoot any unarmed people in that.
Huh. I thought you did. Anyway, there's nothing
I did the
like
first time just because I didn't want to blow my cover.
Oh.
But I didn't realize that the game wasn't that smart.
There's nothing like that in this game, but they tease that there is going to be something that terrible in the next game. Without spoiling too much, if that makes sense. Then there's another mission where you're trying to defuse a bomb that's already in flight. It's a missile that's headed for a territory, and you're trying to remotely disarm the missile before it hits its target. You don't have any weapons, and so you have to run and hide from the enemies and try to find places where they won't find you so you can go through the sequence on like the laptop case to defuse the missile, and it's just all luck. Like, eventually I did it, and it's just because the AI broke and they just didn't find me. And I thought that mission sucked. Now I want to talk about the missions that I enjoyed because there were a lot of them. A lot of people are fans of All Gillied Up. That is the classic sniper mission from the first Modern Warfare 2. Is that Modern Warfare 2 or Call of Duty? Modern Warfare. I can't remember.
All Gillied Up?
Yeah. I think that's 2.
That's 1.
Is it 1?
Pretty sure that. With Chernobyl?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Okay. Well, they basically do an homage to that mission in this new rework of Modern Warfare 2, and it's great. It's a little cheesy because it does have a lot of the same things that makes it exciting, meaning like you're laying in the grass and the enemies are walking like right to you, and they're like a foot away and they still can't see you because you're all gillied up or whatever. And then in that same mission, it ends up breaking open into this gigantic open world, and you have a spotter on the top of a mountain, and there's this enemy base down in the valley, and he spots you.
Why are his eyes so big?
I don't know. It's weird.
Like those eyeballs would be like half a foot wide if you take him out of his head. Like, what the? Is he an anime character? What the fuck is that?
But anyway, you have a spotter who tells you how to use your sniper rifle. So it'll be like, it's 3 clicks up on your scope, and you're sniping people from like 2 miles away using bullet drop of like 20 feet or whatever. So you you snipe all the people on the outside, and then you go down the hill and you actually infiltrate the base. And there just really aren't many Call of Duty levels that are like that, where it's in this big open world area and you have a lot of leeway in how you can tackle it. I thought that mission was brilliant. I mean, again, that follows right up after the Gillied Up ripoff. What else? Oh, there's another mission, the Prison Break mission, where you use closed-circuit TV cameras to instruct Ghost. So Ghost is down on the ground. It's almost a little bit like Metal Gear Solid in a way, like he's Solid Snake. And you use the closed-circuit cameras to tell him when to move to cover, when to attack someone. It's a little bit like the Strike Force missions in Black Ops 2. Do you remember those? They're almost like RTS-like levels.
Yeah, where you had to choose where things went and stuff. Yeah,
it's a little bit like that, except it's just Ghost. And you get him all the way through, you navigate him all the way through, he kills people along the way, and you get him out of the prison. That mission was great. There's one mission where they use stealth, but not just like sneaking around. You have no weapons, and you have to go and find components to build shanks and build weapons. You can find like mouse traps and then find explosives, and you can build like these little proximity bombs. And you have to make it through this whole mission without using any real weapons, just stuff that you craft. There's like the
last of COD.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a full-on crafting wheel that they built just for this mission that has like 6 different things that you can ultimately craft. Really clever, really smart, something that I've never really played in a Call of Duty game ever before. And then the rest of the missions, you get your typical like AC-130 bombing missions, a couple of those where you're up in the sky and you're using like infrared like radar to spot the enemies, and you're shooting them from like way up high. And so it does, and there's like long sloggy shootouts where you're just shooting and killing for 10 minutes at a time or whatever, all the typical Call of Duty stuff that are like the middling missions between all the good ones and the bad ones that I mentioned. But as I said, they've done a great job with pacing this campaign, meaning like there's one mission that's not that great, and that will be followed up with one that's really awesome. And they just keep doing that throughout the campaign, so I never got to a point where I was like, oh, that's 2 crappy missions in a row and I don't want to do this anymore. So I plowed through this campaign. I haven't done that with a Call of Duty game in a really long time. Now, granted, it's only 5 or 6 hours, so it's not that big of a commitment. But I did sit down and pretty much just grind right through this like I would back in the old days at like a Call of Duty review event where they lock you in your room and be like, finish it. Here's
Finish it or no food.
Yeah, exactly. Here's Amsterdam, by the way. Literally, some scenes almost look photorealistic when you get down by the water and you see all the boats and the pontoons and stuff.
Like when you'd come down from the hotel room and they're like for dinner or whatever, and they're like, how far are you? I'm like, how far are you? Yes.
That's right. They always used to do that. And if they didn't ask you, a journalist would ask you. Because people were always afraid that they were like way behind and then they'd start multiplayer without you or whatever. Like, it's funny.
The funniest thing that I don't remember who it was. I don't think I knew him, but like I was at the Modern Warfare 2 one, the old one, and I went down and after they got us in and we played for like 4 hours, 5 hours, and then we went down for dinner and we're gonna do multiplayer. And I came down and somebody asked me like where I was, and I said where I was, and he's like, "Oh God, spoilers!" And I'm like, "You
don't ask, asshole!" Like, look at this shot right here of Amsterdam. I don't know if you've ever been there, but I have, and it is. Yeah, that's Amsterdam.
Yep.
Like it is.
That's it.
It's amazing.
I think it's both the quality of the recreation, but also like the number of people.
Yep, and the lighting and the bikes and just all of it. Yep. It nails it. So, I saw someone in chat said, Commander Fett, the last COD campaign I played was Black Ops 2. Well, Black Ops 2 is one of my favorite Call of Duty campaigns ever, and this holds up to it. It's not quite as good, but it's close. I think it's really, really good. Is it worth spending the $60? No. Do not buy the game at full price just to play the campaign. It's 5 hours long. Now, there are multiple difficulty settings and things like that do tend to change Call of Duty campaigns pretty drastically, but it is still the same campaign that you're going to play through. As I said, 17 different missions. Now, as I said, when I played the beta, I talked about the multiplayer a lot. So if you want to hear like a really in-depth discussion of what I think of the multiplayer, you can go back and watch that episode or listen to that episode. But I will say, you know, having played the final COD, multiplayer is great as well. It's really good. Like the Warzone 2.0 hasn't launched yet. That's coming this month and pretty soon, actually. That hasn't launched yet, but all the other, the suite, like the ground war, like full-on vehicles, like it's really hard to tell the difference between Call of Duty and Battlefield now. Mm-hmm. The Battlefields aren't quite as large as they are in Battlefield, but like all the vehicles are there now. And honestly, I like how the maps are a little tighter. And like one of my big complaints with Battlefield is you run for 2 miles and then get sniped. And then you respawn back where you started and you run another 2 miles and then you get sniped. And then you respawn again. Oh, this time there's a vehicle at the base you can take. And now maybe you survive for 3 minutes before you die. Like Call of Duty, even when it has like a bigger map with the vehicles, it still feels like Call of Duty. Like you die a lot, but you're also getting a lot of kills. And when you do die, it doesn't take forever to get back into the action. The respawns are real fast.
Get the distraction of that's a grenade.
Yeah. Johnny Hurricane, am I playing Warzone 2.0 tomorrow? I don't know. It does launch tomorrow. I may give it a little bit of a whirl, but like Pokemon's coming in. What else? There's another game that's coming like in the next day or two. I can't remember what it is right now.
The indie darling Pentiment.
Pentiment. Yeah, that was the other one I said.
That went up last night, but I haven't had time to play it.
Will I play it tomorrow? Probably not. Will I play it before next week's show? Absolutely. Well, I will definitely talk about Warzone 2.0 in next week's GameFace, but not today. But the multiplayer is great. Like, I had big problems with Vanguard. I stuck with Vanguard for maybe like 2 weeks after I played it for a review or to talk about on GameFace. I have continued to play the multiplayer in the Modern Warfare 2 reboot. It's good. I've had a lot of fun with it. The traversal's good. It's not crazy future. It's pretty much present day gear. Maps. My biggest complaint when I played the beta, now that I have all the maps, they're awesome. There's tons of great maps in it. So that was my biggest complaint about the beta, is that there were only a few maps in the beta and I played them over and over and I was already bored of them. Man, there's so many maps in this game, and then some of them are just for ground war. So some maps are quarantined to very specific mode types, and there still are just tons and tons of maps. So Modern Warfare 2 gets a big thumbs up from me. If you like multiplayer, I feel like the multiplayer is great. I still am not a fan of the new loadouts. So they got rid of the pick 10 system, and now it's like a pick 5, basically. You can only attach like 5 things to your gun at a time. So it does add some strategy. You have to be a little more strategic with what you do or do not attach to your guns. But I just don't feel like I have the flexibility now to build the gun that I want. I feel like I'm always making sacrifices now with my gun. It's like I would really like that stock, but I'm already used all 5, and I have to use that 5th one for my ACOG scope or whatever. You have to make hard decisions with your guns now, and I don't like that. Like, I don't feel like they should force us to do that. It's the same deal with the perks. Like, the perks are split into like groups now, and you have to like unlock them like you always had to. But like what I found is that I end up using like one of their prefabs, which I've never done before with perks. But because of the way they unlock and the way they're grouped together, I have not managed to find a way to unlock all the perks that I actually want to play with. So I end up using one of their prefabs that has like both ghost and like all the stealth-based perks all in one. And so I'm using like a prefab setup of perks, which I've never really done before. But otherwise, like, and I will say this, like you're seeing right now, like all the kill streaks and stuff, like there's not that much that's new. It does feel like they were like, well, everybody hated Vanguard, so let's just go back to what people liked. And I don't have any complaints with that. Like, honestly, it is like a sport. Like, it shouldn't, I don't feel like Call of Duty should change all that much other than the maps and the guns that you get. But you can see, look at the vehicles that are in this, Matt. You can control all these in Ground War. It really has become like Battlefield Light at this point, which I think a lot of people will resonate with. And as we just said, Warzone 2.0 launches tomorrow. That's free to play, so everyone will be able to play it. Most people watching the archive of this, it's live now, so you can go download that and play it. Overall, it's a good year for Call of Duty. It's a good release. Like, I haven't come across lots of bugs or issues. Cheating's there already, though, Matt.
Of course it is.
Already seen people wall hacking. Like, I already turned off cross-platform play because most of the cheating happens on PC, although it happens on PlayStation 2 because they have a dongle that they can plug into the USB port on PlayStation consoles that let them hack through walls. So I've already seen it a bunch of times. One thing I will say is that they allow you to report people now. So you get killed, and then they show you the replay of the person killing you. And if you see that they know you're there and they don't have like a heartbeat sensor or whatever, and they are like sneaking around a corner knowing that you're hidden like behind a trash can or whatever and shoot you, you can report them right then and there. I think you can click either the left stick or the right stick, and you can file a report for cheating immediately. And I have already filed like 4 or 5 blatant cheaters that I found playing this game. And that really does ruin it, man. Like, it's just, I don't understand why they can't stop it. Like, Activision can't stop it. And I can't understand why people do it, because you're ultimately going to be exposed as a fraud. What's your end goal? If your end goal is like getting picked up by like an esports team or whatever,
the goal is to piss you off.
Is that it? Like, they're just griefing and that's all there's to it? Like,
pretty much.
Because a lot of people don't even realize, like, I've played matches before with people who are cheating, and like, I'll turn on the mic and I'll be like, yo, Joe Blow 42069 is using wall hacks, and people will be like, what? I'm like, watch, if he kills you, watch your replay. Sure enough, 10 seconds later, that MFer is cheating. I'm like, I told you they're freaking, and like, a lot of people don't even notice it until you point it out to them, and then they make a point to watch it. So it's like, if you're saying they're doing it to grief people, a lot of people don't even know they're being griefed. Like,
yeah, but eventually they'll get a thing where, like, they do realize it, and that's exactly what they're after.
I guess. I'll never understand that mentality. But anyway, and like, Sneaky's like, their goal is to laugh at you getting angry. Nobody uses mics anymore. They can't hear you getting angry. Like, I don't get it.
But they know you are. Like,
they think that you are.
Yeah. That's just, it's all in their head at that point, but that's enough for them.
I guess so. But even the cheaters haven't taken enough shine off of this for me to not recommend it. I've had a lot of fun playing it already. I've continued to play the multiplayer. There was about a week where I was going back and forth between Overwatch 2 and Call of Duty, and ultimately Call of Duty won out. So it has become my daily driver shooter now that I play when I have a couple spare minutes. And Overwatch 2, I play sparingly at this point. So I recommend it if you're into multiplayer, if you're into there's tons of crazy modes in the multiplayer as well that I haven't really gone over. There's too many to mention, to be honest. But there's just tons of modes. There's tons of maps, tons of guns. And between that and the campaign that I believe is really worth playing and really fun this year, I say pick up Call of Duty this year. And obviously last year, that was not the case. I said stay far away. So a vast improvement over Vanguard in almost every conceivable way, in my opinion. I've had a lot of fun with it, and I've enjoyed playing it. So I do recommend, and I don't even know if the year before this I even recommended buying Call of Duty. It's been a while since I've enjoyed.
You did on Black Ops 4.
It's been a while since I have enjoyed a Call of Duty game this much. And I am someone who played them all.
Yeah, obviously for me it's been 6 years since I liked one. So
yeah, and we just got the announcement though, Advanced Warfare 2. They're gonna make it.
Yeah, but that's not the one.
Yeah, I mean it's still better.
Yeah,
it's still future-y, but not as futuristic.
I didn't care for it.
Yeah,
I've had it in my head for a while. I don't know why. I've had it in my head for like. It would have to be a situation where like we aren't doing this show pretty much, but I'm like, it'd be interesting to play through all the Call of Duty campaigns, like all in a row.
It wouldn't take very long,
like, chronologically. Yeah, it would, but like, because I remember them. Yeah, I liked them so much back then, and then they got to be a slog, and then like stuff like little bright spots like Infinite Warfare, and it'd be interesting to sort of see how it all evolved.
Yeah.
But it's just I don't
Here's
know.
the thing, Matt. It goes like this, dude.
Yeah,
it's not a steady line upwards.
Oh, no,
it goes up and down, and that's a
especially when you've got because it's like, okay, you have the Call of Duty 1, great. Call of Duty 2, great. You gotta get through Call of Duty 3 because that was Treyarch learning how to fly, and then you jump up to Modern Warfare, and you jump back down to Black Ops 1,
and then Black Ops 2. Straight up, like amazing.
I didn't like Black Ops. I don't like any of the Black Ops games.
Really? Interesting.
Campaign. I don't find any of them particularly interesting.
Huh. I love Black Ops 2. It's one of my faves.
I don't like how Treyarch. I mean, I haven't played a Treyarch campaign in a long time, but back in the day, didn't like how old style Treyarch did their campaigns because they never breathed. It was just a Michael Bay movie.
That's accurate.
It was just a Michael Bay movie from start to finish, and I didn't get anything. I liked Infinity Ward's pacing choices and the way they
Black Ops 2 did break it up.
Down.
Like I mentioned earlier, there's the Strike Force stuff. It's like literally almost like an RTS that you play through. But I
didn't finish Black Ops 2. It's the first Call of Duty campaign I didn't finish.
They did kind of, after that, though, settle into the groove that you're talking about, though. So I can see where you're coming from. But I had a lot of fun with it. I really enjoyed it. And the campaign's definitely worth playing. So I say pick up Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Next up, we're going to talk about one of those games that became work for me because I was trying to play all these other games that I needed to talk about on GameFace. And that game is New Tales from the Borderlands. Matt, did you play the original Tales from the Borderlands?
Yeah, eventually.
Did you think it was amazing?
That was pretty good.
Me too. I was more than pleasantly surprised by that game.
Way more than I thought I would like it.
And I had high hopes for this as well. I specifically reached out to Take-Two and 2K to get review code for this. I was like, hey, I really like the first one. Can you hook us up with some code? And they came through and delivered. And it's nowhere near as good as the first Tales from the Borderlands. First of all, this is not made by Telltale. Even though Telltale now exists again, it disappeared and now it's come back.
Although it's not really any of the same people.
It's not. There's a couple people who are there that were there before, but for the most part, it's a whole new crew. But Gearbox decided to do this in-house. I think anyone who plays these choose-your-own
Did they bring anyone from the previous one in for this?
I don't think so. I really don't think that they did. These games are driven by writing. And the writing in this is good, and the voice acting is really good. But the jokes just don't land. And the first one, I thought, was funnier.
In a Gearbox game?
Yeah, exactly. The first one, I thought the jokes did land. Like, I laughed out loud at that game a couple times. This one, like, it's just low-hanging fruit
It was
jokes.
way funnier than the Borderlands game.
Yeah, it was way better. The story in that was way better than the Borderlands games. This one is probably still better than the Borderlands games because their stories aren't that great. Let's just be honest. But this is told from the perspective of three different characters. There's this girl. She is a scientist. Her name's Anu. She is a scientist on a space station working for an evil mega corporation. And her boss has had it with her. She has not delivered on developing weapons for him, and this is kind of her last chance. She's been developing this gun that you see that she's holding right there. That's supposed to basically teleport enemies to somewhere and then be able to bring them back. The boss calls her into the office and is like, okay, I need to see your weapon. She's like, it's not done. He's like, I don't care. You need to show it or you're going to be fired. She shows it. It works kind of, and he still fires her. And then the second character that you play as is her little brother, named Octavio. He's a wannabe entrepreneur who is obsessed with social media fame. He ends up getting roped into working for an assassination robot. So in this timeline, there are robots who go out and assassinate people for money. They're basically bounty
Elon
hunters.
Musk is what you're telling me.
That may be. And then the third character you play as is this woman named Fran. She is a sexually charged woman with anger issues. She has like this little pocket like PDA thing that monitors her like anger levels. So she starts to get angry. The little PDA is like, yo, you're about to freak out. I haven't finished the game, so I haven't got the payoff to figure out like why it's so important that she follows this PDA. But that's kind of who she is. She also owns like an ice cream shop that has been bombed by one of the evil corporations in the game because she owes them money. I'm not sure why you would bomb her place of business when she owes you money, because that would keep her from making money to pay you, but
the idea is to set an example so anyone else who owes you money knows that's what's going to happen to them. So
that they also will be unable to pay the money back. But anyway, this game, it has loopholes like that in the story where you're just like, just the big gaping plot holes. You're like, that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, that's mob tactics. That's a real thing.
I guess.
Not much anymore.
Well, they break your kneecaps or whatever.
Right, but at a certain point, they will smash the place up.
To make sure you can't pay them back.
To show the other stores that owe them money that you better pay up or we'll do that to you.
Happen.
Like it's an example.
Yeah.
That's I mean that doesn't make any sense, but it's the logic that they use. It's a real thing.
Yeah. Well, eventually, all three of these characters end up coming together because bad stuff happens, basically. And they end up getting together and they want to pull off a heist together where they are trying to steal a healing crystal from a vault. And at the same time, a war breaks out between these two corporations. So right now they're on this ship out in space. Well, eventually this ship gets invaded by the rival corporation, and there's an all-out war on the ship. Anu escapes, flies down to the surface, and that's where the trio get together and start fomenting their plot to steal this shard. As you finish each chapter of the game, you get bonding ratings. Not what you're thinking bonding ratings. It's how the characters are bonding with each other. I'm not sure how that plays into any decisions later on. I'll be honest with you. A lot of the choices I've made have not paid off at all yet, as far as me being able to see, like, the decision that I made, what ultimately happened in the story of the game that changed the story of the game. And that's what these are all about. You know, being able to make decisions that change the outcome of the story and make it personal for you. And I've not seen a lot of that yet. They do break the fourth wall. Like there's one scene where the assassination robot is looking at the one guy on his phone, and he's like, "Oh, are you playing one of those insipid narrative-driven like choose your own adventure games or whatever?" There's another scene where you're talking to a robot, and the robot says, "I'll remember that," which is a trope from these games. And the people around him are like, "What? What did you just say?" Like, because they're just like, why would a robot say that? Like, so there's like little gags like that are like a nod to the genre, so to speak. But ultimately, so far, the payoff just hasn't been there. As far as like, I've made these choices, like, how is that going to affect the outcome of my game specifically? The whole game is there from the beginning. So it's not like the old Telltale games where you play one chapter, you wait 6 weeks, they release another one. And I think that's smart because after the first couple hours, the game really gets boring. Like, nothing really happens in, like, a lot of the middle chapters. And I think it may have been a choice where they're like, you know what? People get to this chapter, unless we change something drastically about it, they're going to stop playing the game. So you can play this from start to finish, all the way right at launch, all the way to the end of the game. Like most games of this ilk, it is driven by quick time events. And really, there's not much else in the game. You saw in some of the B-roll there a minute ago, there are sections of the game where you can walk around an area and talk to people, or like Anu, she has the ability to scan, which I know you love, Matt. So you can, like, there are certain sections where she walks around areas and she finds objects that she can scan, and she gets clues from those things. And there's stuff like that, but for the most part, the entire game is driven by quick time events. Not a surprise. That's usually how this genre works. The QuickTime events aren't that challenging. You can go into the settings and you can make it more difficult or easier if you want to. In fact, I think that there's one setting that you can use where there's just no QuickTime events at all. You can kind of just sit back and watch the story play out, making just like the decisions that you need to make. The QuickTime events, they're handled pretty well. You get kind of like a warning sign before one comes up, like a little D-pad will flash on the screen, so you don't get like caught off guard, which is a little feature that may seem insignificant, but I think it makes a big difference for games like this. You don't have to like sit there at all times with the controller in your hands, like waiting to like react, because it will give you a warning and then you'll kind of snap to attention, and then you're like, okay, I'm ready to do the inputs. They give you a pretty big window to do the inputs. You can see here some of the QuickTime stuff. It's not like it's really fast and you end up failing a lot of them. And even when you do fail, you never die. So it's not like you can fail QuickTime events and suddenly a character dies and, you know, it ruins like the whole rest of the story for you or whatever. But at the same time, there aren't that many consequences for failing the QuickTime events. So I think your mileage will vary on that depending on how you view this genre. What else can I even say? So there are QTEs for mundane actions. Like you just saw there, like make the ice cream. Like, it's not quite to the level of Heavy Rain where you have like...
We call it Frogurt.
Yeah, that's right. They do call it Frogurt, actually. It's not as bad as like Heavy Rain, honestly. But there are lots of moments where you're forced to do like QuickTime inputs for stuff that should just happen in the cutscene without you having to take any control over the game at all. Dialogue options are plentiful. Some of them are hard to read, although like a lot of games like this, the order that they're in kind of tells you. It's like X is always like you're not taking it serious, you're gonna crack a joke. Right, like the circle button is you agree, the square button is you disagree, and then the triangle is almost always just like ellipses, like if you just don't want to answer at all. But it's hard to read the responses on screen a lot because they're white text that just pop up over the game's graphics. There's no background over them. So if there's like a lot of white or a lot of detail behind the dialogue options, it's really hard to read what they are. And coupled with the fact that you don't have a lot of time to make the dialogue choices in this game, it can get a little messy. But they're pretty clever. Like, the writing and the dialogue is pretty good. And it's not one of those things where you choose something and what happens isn't what you expect. I hate that, where it feels like you choose an option where you're like trying to be nice or cool, and then as it turns out, you actually end up like offending somebody with what you said. I'm sure you've had that happen. Like, there's none of that in this game, and I appreciate that, because that drives me up the wall, where they blatantly try to lead you in one direction with the response, and you select it, and it's basically a bait and switch, and it ends up doing something else entirely than what you expected inside the game. Like, the dialogue choices are pretty true to what is the actual message that's going to be conveyed inside the game. However, there's not a lot of feedback on if or how you're making the right or wrong decisions as you make them. So it's kind of hard to connect the decision making with the consequences later on. Like, so for example, I said a minute ago that like I haven't seen a lot of like the trickle down from my decision making, but maybe there has been, and I just haven't picked up on it, because there's the cause and effect isn't clearly demonstrated when you make the decision of what the potential pitfalls could be. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with how she continually points the experimental gun at the guy.
Well, this guy's a bad guy, technically.
But she's just talking and waving the barrel around. I'm just like...
that could teleport him to some other domain. Yeah. Aside from that, there's this weird, like, Vaultlanders action figure fighting game that you play. Like, you collect action figures from different characters that you come across in the game. And then there's an actual fighting game where you fight your characters, your little action figures, against these other characters. And honestly, the kid who introduces it reminds me of like the rival in Pokemon. And he keeps popping up throughout the game to like play you with this. And then there's also the option to play the Vaultlanders from the main menu of the game if you don't want to like wait until it actually pops up organically inside the campaign. I guess what I would say in general throughout the game is that the pacing is bad. Like, it starts off really strong, then there's like just like 2 hours of it just drags, and then you have like a good chapter, and then it kind of settles back into this boring groove again. There's lots of times where I just kept hoping for scenes to end, because it's like, I get it, I know what you're trying to say, now I have to sit through like 3 really corny bad jokes before we'll get to the point that you're actually trying to make in this cutscene. There's a lot of that. There's like where I was just like, I just want to skip this, but you can't, because you're afraid that a dialogue option will pop up that you'll miss, or there'll be a QuickTime event that comes up that you won't get the prompt for and you won't be prepared for. So you just have to sit and bear it, unfortunately. The jokes are mostly cringe. There's lots of sexual innuendo. Like, the woman Fran talks about sex constantly. Like, a lot of the jokes are low-hanging fruit. The breaking the fourth wall stuff was pretty clever for the most part. But generally, I felt like the jokes fall flat, though the general writing, I feel, is good. It's just the jokes don't land. And the voice acting is great. Like, the cast that they have delivers. It's just the script, they can only do so much of it. And there's lots of jokes about capitalism. So you either have jokes about how dumb capitalism is, or you have like sexual innuendo. And that's pretty much the entire gamut of the writing for the jokes in this game.
When does it take place in relation to Borderlands?
It takes place between 2 and 3, I believe. And it is interesting. Like, every once in a while, there will be little scenes where you get a glimpse at what's happening, like, at what would be happening normally in, like, a Borderlands shooter, if that makes sense. Like, you'll come across scenes where people are, like, shooting at each other, and, like, you're kind of brushing elbows. And I don't know if maybe they even pulled that, if that's actually a scene in one of the Borderlands games that they brought in to just show from, like, a third-person perspective or whatever. But there are nods like that where you dip your toes into the universe a little bit. And so I will say this, like, the game does do a good job of constantly reminding you that it's part of Borderlands. And there are some characters from prior Borderlands games that have cameo appearances in here, and you'll see them. They aren't like big characters in the overall plot, but they just show up and they're like, oh, I remember you, blah, blah, blah. So I struggle to tell someone to buy this. There haven't been a lot of narrative-driven games like this year. There have been a couple. Most of them have been horror related, though. So this is really kind of the first quirky, kind of funny-ish example of this that we've had this year. And so if you're looking for something like that, I do think it's passable, but it just doesn't have that Telltale magic to it. It just doesn't. It's not a page turner, I guess is the best way I can put it.
I mean, a lot of late Telltale games didn't have that Telltale magic.
That's true.
Either.
Yeah, once they lost a little bit of the talent and whatnot, people went to work for other developers where they could make more money. There was a little bit of brain drain at Telltale even before it shuttered, and now it's reopened. It'll be interesting to see what the new Telltale does, if it can produce games better than this. The production values in this are great, by the way. That is one thing. Like, a lot of times these games are made by smaller studios, and there's some corners cut here and there. Because this was made in-house by Gearbox, the production values in it are really good in general. Like, the visuals are great, like the framing of the cutscenes, the angles that they use for the cinematics, all that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like they do a really good job of it. But ultimately, these games are live or die based on their stories, and the story in this just isn't that great. I will say they do a pretty good job of developing each character before they bring them together. You play it for a good 90 minutes before all three characters are brought together into the same plot together, which is good. I mean, that's something that needs to be done for games like this. But again, like, ultimately the jokes just don't land and the plot just isn't interesting enough. And I would argue neither are the three primary characters. Like, one out of the three can really carry a game, I would say. And that's just not good enough. So I enjoyed it in spurts. I had some fun with it here and there. I haven't quite finished it yet. I don't know if I'm going to finish it. I think it would take a really dry December, like next month, for me to go and finish it off. It seems like it's pretty big. I've played like 5 hours of it, and again, it doesn't seem like it's wrapping up, which is long for a game like this. So seems like it's probably closer to maybe 10 hours, something like that. So you're going to get your money's worth for a game like this. Typically, like, they're not that long, so this is a little longer than most of them. But still, I would struggle to tell someone to buy this. It just goes to show you that you can have competent developers, you can have competent voice actors, you can have a competent writer, but if the jokes don't land, it doesn't matter. I mean, I think we saw that with like X-Play. Like, you and I are great writers. We can write great stuff about games. But it was Blair Butler that really made X-Play. It was her writing of the raps for Adam and Morgan, her jokes, that made X-Play. It was the glue that held the whole show together. And that's the best way I could describe this game. It's all these parts that do not have the glue that is holding them all together, and that is really funny writing. So it checks a lot of boxes, but not the most important one. I guess is the best way I could sum it up, ultimately. Do you have any questions about it?
A little less than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, too. Do you have any questions about it, by any chance? No.
Wow, Destructoid gave it a 3?
Destructoid gave it a 3.
Wow.
That's a little harsh. Ashes in the Hourglass says just play Pentiment. It does seem that way.
Yeah.
It's getting perfect 10s, Pentiment, which is crazy.
I mean, this came out a while ago, didn't
it? Yeah. It came out. I got review code like the day before I left for my trip to Greece. And I came back and I was sick and I didn't feel like playing this, and I just kind of dove in it this past week and wanted to give it a go. So I did. Let's see if anyone else has any questions here. 3 is too low. Caver, thank you for Twitch Prime. Did you just spoil something? I don't think they're asking me that.
No, they're talking about the Pokemon thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, obviously, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet will be in next week's show.
Well, there was a development in the anime where...
I
mean, it's not a spoiler because it was literally broadcast in Tokyo's, like... In this, like, they showed the scene, like, on the screens in, like, Tokyo Square and Shinjuku. I guess it's a big deal. Because Ash finally won... a tournament 25 years later.
Wow. That is a big spoiler.
So, except like the Pokemon Twitter account tweeted it out the day it happened. Like, it's not because look, a lot of the people that are interested in this don't watch the Pokemon anime.
No,
anymore.
They don't. Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, that's interesting that's a thing. Somebody made the joke that like now because Ash is still 10, right? Like he hasn't grown up.
Yeah.
He's just been around for 25 years. And someone joked that now Ash is finally the entry-level employee with 25 years experience that businesses are actually looking for.
Yeah.
Because he's 10 years old, but he's been doing this for 25 years.
So anyway, I do not recommend picking up new Tales from the Borderlands. Maybe if you find it for $10 on down the road, it might be worth it. But chances are there will probably be some other narrative-driven, choice-driven game that's better that you'd rather play at that point.
Just go play Norco instead.
It feels like a cash grab to me. It feels like a game that Gearbox is like, we can get this done quick. There's a lot of positive energy around the original still.
Some of that. It also feels like them trying to diversify a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
To make Gearbox make other things.
It's possible. But they've proven that they can do this technically soundly, but artistically, that's where it falls flat.
That has kind of been their
That
issue.
has kind of been their forte all along, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, yeah. And some of it's just love it. Like Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I thought that was a good... I thought that was a step up from Borderlands 3.
I agree. It was better than Borderlands 3.
Certainly, it sounds like sales-wise, it definitely was a step up from Borderlands 3.
Oh, it sold well?
It sold very well.
Oh, good.
Extremely well.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, to the point that they are basically probably going to pivot to make that a franchise.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
So it did well. But that thing is kind of like, it either works for you or it doesn't.
Yeah.
The way to the Tiny Tina humor. So.
Yep. Okay, it's time to move on. We have 2 more topics, by the way, and we're running out of time. So this one, Matt, we both have to be on our P's and Q's. We have to do this topic in 8 minutes or less. And this topic is something that happened a while ago, but Matt and I have not discussed it on GameFace.
I mean, I can give this one in one sentence. Give me a fucking break.
And that is the price point for PlayStation VR2.
I mean, this is we called this a little bit.
We did call it.
But
we said that it was going to cost this much all along. People said we were crazy. People in the YouTube comments said that we were nuts.
No, did they? Because I never look at the YouTube comments. I don't care what you idiots say.
They thought we were nuts, and we were right on the money. It's $549 US.
I said it at least as much as the system.
Yep.
And here we are.
And what do you think, Matt? What are the chances of success for this thing now?
Not tops.
Dude, so somebody asked Pactor about the price of PlayStation VR2 and what it needed to be. And this was one of those cases where it was he and I shooting, and he answered like $200, and I laughed out loud. Yeah. I'm like, are you effing kidding me?
Just the components involved.
Dude, the original was $400. Like, there's no way. And he's like, and so his response was...
look, he's right that to be successful, that's what the price would need to be, but it was not going to be what the price was.
Well, he said if it's over $400, it's dead in the water, which is what we have been saying for months and months here on GameFace.
Also, if it has that launch lineup, which is
awful,
dire.
Yeah.
Like, there's 2 games that I would even think about playing: Horizon and the one made by
the other one?
Supermassive. They basically made another Rush of Blood, Until Dawn. You remember Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, like on VR1? Well, they made another one that is now being termed the Dark Pictures thing, or whatever. Or maybe it's the Quarry. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's another. They made another light gun shooter with that, and I thought that was fun. I like the Rush of Blood game, so I would play that. And look, I'm probably going...
Thank God you're going to buy this.
To get this, because otherwise we're not going to be able to talk about it on the show, but otherwise I would never buy this.
I am very happy that you're buying this, Matt, and I don't have to. Because,
the only thing selling this to me is the fact that I am on this show.
Yeah.
If I didn't have to talk about it on the show, if we didn't need to do that, I would not be giving money to this thing. This is a ridiculous thing to do.
Corded, by the way.
I don't care about corded so much. I care about the fact that the entire lineup is garbage. And a lot of it is already on other systems.
A lot of it's remakes.
And one of them is already on PSVR 1, which is really disturbing because you're like, oh, so is there no Beat Saber on this at launch?
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it.
It doesn't. The biggest VR game in the world.
Because one of the things in that presentation was the fact that there's an update bringing the PSVR 1 version of another game compatible with this.
PSVR 2, yeah.
They are apparently doing a compatibility patch for No Man's Sky.
Yeah,
which is obvious. No Man's Sky is that. Well, you think you can get one for Arkham? No. Iron Man? Come on.
No. Iron Man might.
Maybe, but like
because that IP
But is that team even around anymore? Like, who made that? I don't remember.
Actually.
Is any of that even
a question. He looks as dumbfounded as we are.
Yeah.
So they're going to have 2 million units ready for launch in February. It's February 24th, I believe. Mm-hmm. How long do you think it will take for PlayStation to sell those 2 million units?
Forever?
Like never? You don't think they'll ever sell 2 million?
Like
they ended up selling 5 million of the original PlayStation VR.
I mean, you got to liquidate it one day.
Yeah. You don't think they'll sell it through by holidays next year? That would be my guess.
Maybe. I mean, but how?
They'll have a couple games maybe by then.
But what?
I don't know.
Why aren't they talking about those games? Maybe if Half-Life Alyx ends up on it.
Ashes in the Hourglass thinks 6 months to sell 2 million. I think that's optimistic.
At that price? Like, I mean, obviously it could liquidate by then.
Yeah,
but
I don't think Sony won't do that though.
But at $550,
too much R&D.
I'd be surprised if you run through that whole shipment by the end of the year.
I think you'll sell 1 million to people like you.
Yeah,
the enthusiasts, people with a lot of disposable income.
People with disposable income on TV show on podcasts. Yeah, I don't know how big that demo is, but hey, you got to aim for something.
No, I'm not saying on podcasts, but just enthusiasts who have a lot of money. Like, I think there's 1 million of those out there.
I guess I don't. But like, what are you gonna play on?
I think the second million will be really hard to sell, though.
Yeah,
like really hard. And maybe they get through that by the end of the holidays next year, but probably not.
And there's actual competition. There's the Oculus thing. It's going to cost way less.
And once it makes it through its first holiday, if it doesn't sell gangbusters, what happens then?
It's going to sit in my fucking closet for 10 years. Was going to.
No, I mean, what does PlayStation do then? Does it then chop the price way down?
It's all going to sit in the closet for 10 years.
Vincent brings up a good point that they did rework Iron Man for Oculus Quest. So that is, somebody is working on that game still. So maybe
but he also knows that Meta owns that team now.
Oh, that's true.
So probably no update.
Yeah,
for
it's probably not coming to PlayStation unless they're just like, we need to make money by any means necessary. Which, with what's happening at Meta/Facebook right now, might be the case. He's about to lay off 11,000 people.
Yeah, well,
that's crazy, dude.
$5 billion on that.
It's nuts. What people
do. They couldn't even get legs in.
Yeah. It's bad.
It's a whole. This is even worse than this cloud streaming game thing because there's so much more money and stuff being put by. There's so many people, so many billions of dollars being thrown at trying to make fetch happen with this VR thing. And it's like, it'll get there one day, but it's not today. Yeah. And it's not this.
I can't believe PlayStation doubled down on VR. Do you think it would have been smarter for them to make another handheld instead of VR?
No, because the handheld is a guaranteed loser.
They're both bad ideas.
They're both bad ideas, but the handheld is a guaranteed loser. This maybe had a shot if they maybe did it differently, or had an actual library to speak of, or made sure that all the existing VR games were brought forward for it. Yeah. But none of that seems to be happening.
No, it's not happening. None of it is happening.
So what am I even looking at anymore? What am I going to play on this thing after launch day? Like, there's nothing coming. Like, look, the only way this is going to be even slightly worth anything is if Half-Life Alyx makes it onto it. Yeah. Because then you've got another way to play that game that doesn't require you to have an expensive headset on PC.
So somebody asked, like,
but they haven't even mentioned Half-Life yet. Yeah. It's not. You'd think that would be very much in their bragging rights department for this. And like, why wouldn't that be a launch thing?
Yeah. Swallen says they should have made it work with PC, which I agree with. So
yeah, I'm sure there will be a way to do it.
One of the comments on Pactor's episode where he talks about the price of PlayStation VR2, one of the comments was, "Oh, he's wrong because this will work on PC. They made the original PlayStation VR work on PC." And it's like, yeah, dude, it was like a hack. Like, you had to upload firmware to PlayStation VR that like invalidated your warranty. Like,
you had to jailbreak
people are not going to do that. No, like,
not en masse.
Not when you spend $549 on something. Like,
it's not even as simple as like making Oculus games work on Vive.
Right.
It's like you got to do some reflashing of the system. Like,
exactly. Like, it's not going to happen. It'll happen, but it's not going to happen on a scale that's going to help PlayStation VR2
like,
sell.
no one's going to go buy a PlayStation VR2 because they want to use it on PC, and they're choosing that over
because they can hack it and make it work on PC. No, I mean, look, for the price, you are getting a kick-ass HMD. Don't get me wrong.
The problem isn't the tech. The problem's not even the price per se in terms of what they're charging for what they're giving you. The problem is, like, I don't trust this thing to have any games past the launch launch day.
I mean, technically, for what you're getting, it is a good deal.
Yeah,
I hate to say it, but it is a good deal. Getting that technology for $549, Sony's still probably losing its ass.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, maybe breaking even.
They're definitely not gouging for the tech they're providing.
But it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant.
But it's like a combination of like the cost plus the lineup that I don't trust them to continue to provide content for the thing, plus the economic situation right now.
Yeah.
It's not the time.
Although, did you see? Inflation is finally starting to go down.
Yeah, it's not going to help PlayStation VR.
No, it's not going to help PlayStation VR2, but it is starting to go down. Thank God for all of us all around the world.
All the tech here is really cool. It's just like the cost is too much and there's nothing. I don't trust these fuckers.
I mean, Barry Lomax says you're spending $1,000 between the console and the headset. Yeah. Actually, you're spending $1,100.
$1,100, and that's before taxes, which is 10%
PS5
in California.
Is $547 after tax.
After tax is $600.
What? This will be. Yeah. So you're actually spending $1,150 for the two things together. Mm-hmm. That's insane.
Well, more than that. I mean, that's also how much the PlayStation is.
Yeah, PlayStation is $5 plus tax $547.
Aren't they raising it elsewhere too?
Well, that's right. That's a good point.
Not in the US, but elsewhere it's going to be even more. Elsewhere, you're going to be spending $1,300.
Right. It's crazy. It's going to fail. Both of us agree this is going to flop monumentally, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the games are 70.
Are they going to be 70?
Probably. Certainly Horizon will be. It's a PS5 game.
It is. It's going to fail so miserably.
I don't want it.
I don't either. I mean, I don't want it to fail.
No, I don't want it.
You don't want it.
I don't want to own it, but I'm going to because of the nature of the fucking thing.
Thank you for jumping on that grenade, Matt Kyle. I appreciate it. Mega Drive Guy, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome, man. Vincent says you can get a bundle with Horizon for $600.
By Grabcar's Hammer. What a savings.
So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's a huge story, and we wanted to discuss it. We hadn't had a chance to do that on GameFace, so I think you guys knew where we were headed on this one after what we've been saying for months about PlayStation VR2, but it all sadly came to fruition just exactly as Matt and I had prophesized.
The show about that is just going to... The headset's just going to be here, and I'm just going to yell at it for an hour. That's what we're going to do. I'm just going to scold it.
I await your report, Kyle.
Right. I mean, you can use it too.
Yeah. Maybe I can take it home and test it or something, because you'll be done with it.
Yeah, get it out of here. I shot 4 arrows with the fucking haptic thing on the horizon, and I'm ready. I'm good.
Yeah.
You bring it back in 2024.
All right, let's move on.
When they get the third game out for it.
Let's move on to our last topic of episode 320 here on GameFace at Sifted.net. Just today, the Game Awards Game of the Year nominees were announced. Yesterday, sorry. Jeff Keighley's big award show coming up here in the next month or so.
December 8th.
December 8th, actually. It's less than a month at this point. They announced the game. We're not going to go through all the nominees because he trickles those out. And it's smart to keep people talking about the Game Awards. I get it. But we are going to discuss very quickly the nominees for Game of the Year. Now, remember that these nominees come from all of the press. So I used to be a part of this. I'm not anymore because now I work on a small website. It's so funny how that matters. Like, my opinion mattered because I worked at a big publication, but now that I actually know more than I did then, my opinion doesn't matter. But anyway, I used to be on the editorial council for the Game Awards, but not anymore.
I used to be with it, and then they changed what it was.
And now I'm not. But it's basically all, like, the executive editors, the editors-in-chief of all the various websites are in a council, and they give you, like, a ranked choice ballot. At least that's how they did it when I was in it, where they would give you a category, and then you'd pick 5 games in order. So it wasn't like you'd just pick one game for Game of the Year. You'd pick 5 in order, and then they'd rank the choices and come up with the nominees and then ultimately the winners. And based upon that, they've come up with several nominees for Game of the Year, and those include Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, A Plague Tale Requiem, Stray, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Matt, are there any games there that stand out to you as like, huh?
Plague Tale is a giant huh.
Yeah.
And also, look, I love Stray.
It's not Game of the Year material.
I mean, look, that maybe says more about the year than...
It has been a bad year for video games.
You might just be running out of hype. But
I haven't done this exercise yet, by the way.
But there's no Horizon.
Yeah.
Why is Horizon?
That's crazy.
I would definitely put Horizon in there over Plague Tale of all things. Like, I'm not saying Horizon was amazing, but
so we just put up,
and why there's a bunch of nominees all through the other categories, and I'm just like, what? Like, Plague Tale got nominated for narrative. Got nominated for narrative. Norco's sitting right there. What are you on? I know what you're on. You're a bunch of press people that don't know anything about the obscure stuff. You're just picking AAA shit.
Yeah.
But it's like things like that. Like where is the? I mean, Norco got mentioned in like I think Indie Debut or something, or one of the little indie things is going to be read off as like a list of things that nobody pays attention to.
That'll be a part of a TV commercial.
While Jeff Breakneck sprints to the next intro to the world premiere. But like, because no one's here for the fucking awards. I'm also very curious about Elden Ring being nominated for RPG because I know technically, but come on, it's an action game. And also like everyone else in that category is like a JRPG. And it's hilarious because that game's going to win. And every other year they've done the RPG category as a quick list before we jump to the next trailer. Sometimes it's not even in the main show. How are you going to do that when the Game of the Year winner is going to be winning Best RPG?
Do you think that Elden Ring is going to win
Without
Game of the Year at the Game Awards?
Any doubt whatsoever. There is not a chance in hell anything other than Elden Ring wins this.
Look, I don't know everybody who's on the council, but I do know that typically and generally that the editors who contribute to the nominees and winners are the older people at the publications. They are the editors-in-chiefs. They are the executive editors who've been there for a long time. And what I saw about Elden Ring was a lot of the older journalists did not like it at all.
Yeah, but the older journalists also know how the game is played.
Yeah.
And if you don't give Elden Ring Best Game, that's the end of this.
No, I think there's a clear pathway for God of War Ragnarok to win without people freaking out about it.
Theoretically, but it doesn't matter because Elden Ring's going to win.
You think so?
I have zero doubt in my head.
Why?
Because it has a 98 critic rating. Mm-hmm. It is easily.
But, I mean, the people who reviewed the game were all the big fans
but you
of From Software.
Yeah, but
aren't the ones contributing to this.
Doesn't matter. The editors are not voting on their own personal opinions so much as they are also voting in terms of sort of a more macro, like high level.
Their editorial voice.
Their editorial voice, yes, and their editorial voice for almost every periodical and publication is Elden Ring is the highest rated game of the year.
What is God of War's Metacritic right now?
I don't remember, but it's not as high. It's not as high as Metacritic. It's not as high as Elden Ring. It's like 93, 91.
Still in the 90s. They can still get away with God of War Ragnarok.
You could, but they don't have to because they won't.
Yeah.
It's Elden Ring. Elden Ring is going to win every fucking Game of the Year award in everything this year. There is not a chance in. I mean, Ragnarok will get a couple from like rogue publications who want to be original, but like Elden Ring is going to win everything. I'm not saying that I'm happy about that.
Yeah,
I think Elden Ring is great, but like, I don't know. Maybe I don't like anything better than Elden Ring. So I have a lot of complaints about Elden Ring. We've been over that. I don't think it's actually as innovative as everybody seems to think it is. It doesn't do anything new.
Well, if you've been playing open world games, it doesn't do anything.
And
innovative.
I've said multiple times, like innovation is not as important as execution. But I don't think Elden Ring really executes a lot of that stuff particularly differently or more interestingly either. So. And so part of it is sort of me being like, well, I wish there was something else I did like better than Elden Ring, but it's been a weak year.
It's been a weak year. And that does open the door for a game like Elden Ring where maybe the executive editors and the editors-in-chief are like, you know what, I didn't really enjoy it that much, but a lot of people on my staff did, and obviously its Metacritic is so high that maybe those people will still... Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a given that Elden Ring wins, though, because of who the people are on the editorial council.
I think it's an absolute given.
I think if they pulled all the editors...
It's also so closely associated
it would win in a landslide.
It's also so closely associated with the Game Awards.
Because Jeff debuted it and blah, blah, blah. I don't think Jeff Jimmies has stuff, though. Like,
I don't think Jeff Jimmies that stuff, but I think people have it in mind when they vote for these things.
Maybe.
And there's an element of
slightly...
Like, it's who fucking cares?
Yeah.
It's the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. It's not the Oscars.
Well, as we pointed out earlier on in the show, like It Takes Two went from selling 2 million copies to selling 7 million after it won Game of the Year.
Yeah. Also,
so it does work a little bit.
A game from a man very closely associated with the Game Awards.
Yeah.
With his fuck the Oscars thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying there's a conspiracy there. I'm just saying that's interesting.
The power of suggestion, maybe. Yeah. There might be something to it.
But I think absolutely it's going to be Elden Ring. I appreciate Minority Games is rooting for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I'm happy to see Xenoblade Chronicles 3 nominated because it is good. And I do love the Xenoblade games except for 2. But
I see somebody...
not a chance in hell Xenoblade Chronicles 3 wins that. There's no way.
That's the game that stands out to me. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, of the games that were nominated, like Stray, I can understand it because there's an arty element to it and it is different. It's kind of like the indie darling from the year.
Yeah.
But Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a good game, but there's just nothing exceptional about it. Like, I've already kind of forgotten about it.
But it's also one of those, like, any other year it wouldn't be there, but it is there this year.
Yeah.
Also, the worst game in that list is Plague Tale.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
I don't know what the hell Plague Tale is doing in the best narrative.
Somebody really strongly, more than... So, we put up last week's episode on Sunday on YouTube, and one of the comments on this show is, you guys couldn't be more wrong about a Plague Tale Requiem. So there are fans of that game out there. We're not two of them.
No, not at all.
So it's definitely not going to win in our awards. That stood out for me, but Xenoblade stood out more. Like,
yeah, but like that stands out more than Xenoblade for sure.
And the other thing too is that like
also it's the only Nintendo game you got.
So that was what I was getting at. So I do wonder if this is like, well, we need a Nintendo game in there because why isn't Pokemon Scarlet and Violet being considered?
Didn't they miss the cutoff?
I mean, the cutoff, it comes out on Friday.
Yeah, but they already announced the nominees. Clearly, they missed the cutoff.
Yeah, but I thought the cutoff was December or something. Like, I thought they could still,
No, the cutoff was basically the week God of War came out, so they could get God of War in.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, they announced the nominees already. The game can't come out after the cutoff.
Yeah.
After the nominees are announced.
Like, most journalists have already played it. They've already finished Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. They've had it from Nintendo for 3 weeks
November
already.
15th is the cutoff.
So it just barely is. It's missing it by 3 days.
Yeah, and Shniki's right. The cutoff is stupid. Hold the awards in January. Yes, agreed. But the reason the awards happen in December is so they can boost Christmas sales.
Boost sales.
Because
they can get the arena cheap.
Right.
Because nobody else
no
wants
one wants it on early December.
Yeah.
Also, like, this is a commercial.
Yeah.
The Game Awards are a commercial. The awards don't matter. Who cares? Like... They'll bring up Pokemon next year and no one will care again. Like the whole point is to watch new trailers.
I think Pokemon will be forgotten for next year.
That could be too.
Because next year is going to be ridiculous. It may be the best year in the history of games.
Shiniki, yes, it is a marketing stunt.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We all know that, but we all want to see the game debuts. I want to see them. Like, I tune in to see.
I don't actually care what wins anything.
Yeah,
like no one. It doesn't mean anything.
It's interesting to see where the hive mind is from the journalists sometimes.
Sure, but I think that's even more interesting looking at the nominees here. I mean, you look at that narrative category, and then look at what's in the Games for Impact thing. As Dusk Falls didn't get narrative, really. Yep. As much as I criticize that game's one of the better written things of the year, without any question.
Yeah.
Norco, Hindsight, like what? Maybe Hindsight's not what I'm thinking of now, but like I would definitely say As Dusk Falls and Norco are stronger narrative contenders than what's in that category.
Yeah.
But they're not there because people, the people that are nominating these things probably haven't played them.
Yeah.
And there's maybe one person on the staff that has played Norco on any given editorial group, and that one person is not going to be able to lobby for Norco effectively enough to get someone to put it in best narrative. But Elden Ring, sure, because Elden Ring's a big game. This is very tilted towards AAA, partly because it is also a huge commercial.
Yeah. Yep. I think the bottom line is that this has been a really bad year for video games. So
it's been rough.
It shouldn't be a surprise to us that some of these games are a surprise.
Oh, and one other one. And I know you and I go back and forth on genre classifications once in a while. What the fuck is Sifu doing in Best Fighting Game? That's a single-player game. Fighting games are versus games.
Well, we won't go back and forth on that one.
No. What the hell? Fighting game is a particular thing.
That is weird.
And that is a versus game.
Even so, I mean...
That's just Streets of Rage.
Yeah.
That's an action-adventure or an action game.
That game is bad also. I played that for like 45 minutes and I was like, I'm good.
Oh, no, I like Sifu a lot.
Oh, you did?
But it ain't no fighting game.
It was so hard.
It's a game in which you fight, but a fighting game is a particular thing.
It's a beat-em-up, a challenge.
Yeah, it's a beat-em-up.
Yeah. Weird.
Could you turn it into a fighting game? Probably, but like, the fact that it's in fighting game is bizarre.
Well, I think the problem is what fighting games released this year? There's like 2, like real ones.
Right.
So,
well, they just don't have the fucking camera. I mean, they have a lot of them. There's they're minor ones that you probably wouldn't have heard of, and I've never played either because they're so anime things or side things. But Sifu's in there just to round the category out, and it's bizarre. It's a bizarre choice.
Sifu was just too hard. The payoff wasn't worth the effort I was putting into it.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a playthrough last week of somebody getting through it on the hardest difficulty without being hit.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's like watching a movie. I
can't even.
It's on a level that I just can't even comprehend. Hell, you know who I'm just looking through the nominee. You know what else I might put in narrative just to be an original little shit? Tunic. Tunic tells that story really well and really interestingly.
In a different kind of way.
In a different kind of way, and it does, in fact, have a pretty strong narrative thread by the end of the game. Mm-hmm. And I certainly wouldn't want to tell anybody how it ends. Because that's part of it.
Tunic managed to sneak in some categories.
I mean, Tunic's in. I mean, all the categories are out.
I haven't looked at any of them.
It's in Best Indie. Best Indie is Cult of the Lamb, Neon White, Sifu, Stray, and Tunic. I think Sifu and Stray are pushing the indie thing a little bit there, given how much marketing they had from the majors. But I guess you're in the No Man's Sky section. Still. Best mobile game, Diablo Immortal got in there. Okay, sure. Mm-hmm.
Some people like it. It's done really well. Yep.
Innovation, accessibility. If God of War Ragnarok doesn't win that, you've missed the boat.
But people don't even pay attention to that stuff.
But it's its own category.
Right. Now people are going to be forced to have to pay attention to it.
Here's the poor best virtual reality category, which is, it's really trying.
I mean, this year, I can't even imagine what that would be.
After the
Resident Evil 4?
No. After the fall, Among Us VR, Bone Lab, Moss Book 2, and Red Matter 2.
Bone Labs will win it. Be my guess.
Yeah,
and it should. It's good stuff.
Action game. I mean, Sifu is an action game. Where's the fighting? The fighting thing it's weird.
That is weird.
Best game designed primarily around head-to-head combat. There's no head-to-head combat in Sifu.
Oh man!
Did they add a multiplayer mode when I wasn't looking?
I don't think
Did that happen?
I don't remember seeing that. Nope. Yep. Okay. Well, there you go. Those are the Game of the Year nominees for the Game Awards. As always, we'll be doing our own Game of the Year awards here on Sifted. That is typically our last episode of the year, so probably about 4 episodes from this one. Usually we do it the second week or the third week of December, right before I head to Pennsylvania for the holidays.
Oh, and my other one, most anticipated, Final Fantasy 16, Hogwarts Legacy, Resident Evil 4, Starfield, and Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, Hogwarts Legacy over Spider-Man 2? Are you out of your frickin' mind?
Yep.
Come on.
It's Harry Potter.
Come on.
Mr. Potter. Yep. Kirby and the Forgotten Nominations from Ashes in the Hourglass. That was a great game. Yeah. The new Kirby game's really good. And I think there's... We'll get into it when we do our own awards. I think we're going to dig up some bones here that the editorial committee did not dig up. And our awards will be different, which is why they're worth watching. All right, there you go. That's GameFace 320. We're not doing Name That Game today because I'll just be honest with you. I got overwhelmed with time and I just didn't get it done in time. It will be back for next week's episode and for every episode for the rest of the year. We have a ton of games from Swanland he sent me over the break. So we have plenty of stuff to give away, and we want to do that before the holidays. We want to give away as many games as we can.
Horizon is on the Game of the Year list.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
It wasn't... I didn't see that.
I don't remember seeing it either. Maybe they added it.
Okay. Well, that's good. That makes sense.
That was one of my first reactions was, where's Horizon?
Yeah, it should be. It absolutely should be. JM Rain, thank you for Twitch Prime. Norix Nessie, thank you for Twitch Prime. Again, we just had the worst, I'm not exaggerating, the worst Twitch Prime payout we have ever had. And we've been doing it for like 4 or 5 years now. We had the worst monthly payout ever. So if you're someone who only does it every once in a while, it'd be great if you could do it this month with the holidays coming up and all the added expenses that entails. We'd really appreciate it. And you can do that too if you're just a YouTube watcher or if you're listening to the show on any of the podcast feeds out there. Let's see. It's time for some Q&A. So go at Sifted Games. We're not doing Name That Game, but we are going to do some Q&A. So ask us some questions. Again, go at Sifted Games so we can find your questions in the chat. And they stand out from you guys just talking with one another. Let's bring it up. Let me take down the graphic first, and then we'll bring you guys up.
The other thing the nominations remind me of is we got to play Immortality.
Immortality.
Yeah, that's in the Game of the Year conversation for a lot of people.
Okay. I will check it out. Things are going to slow down real fast here coming up.
That's true.
Yeah, like the first couple weeks of December, we're going to have time to do some catch up. Swanland, who everyone should thank in chat because he delivers all the games to give away for Name That Game. Swanland, you are the man. Thank you. Have you seen Terrifier 2? I know you are a gorehound. No, I haven't. No. Have you seen that?
No, but it's got a rep.
Does it?
Oh, Terrifier 2. You don't know about Terrifier 2?
No.
Terrifier 2 has been making people throw up and leave in the middle of the movie. Like there's been a whole thing. And,
what?
When it's been playing and like it's a limited release or it was maybe it was film, but people were like being sick in the theater and fleeing.
What?
Like it was like a big. It's apparently like one of the most disgusting, gory things ever put.
And it's in a theater?
Yeah. Or select markets.
Is it streaming anywhere right now?
I don't think so. But I haven't really been paying attention. That the reports on that were from like a month or so ago.
Wow. No, I haven't seen it. Thank you for the tip, though. I will absolutely check it out. I'm about to watch Barbarian, too, which is on HBO Max right now. That seems to be getting mixed responses from people like me who love gory movies and horror movies. Thank you, Swanland, for that tip. I will check it out. And when I do, I will let you know. I don't think I'll go to a theater to see it, though. I may wait till it comes to, like, streaming. But movies like that, a lot of times, if it's in the theater, you can pay to stream it, and you pay, like, $8 or $10.
I think it's rentable.
Is it rentable?
At this point.
Then I'll watch it before next week's show. You've piqued my interest big time.
Swanland says he rented it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's out there somewhere, maybe on Amazon Prime or something.
So is it rated like
I don't think it's rated at all. I think
it's not rated.
Yeah, I think it's supposed. I mean, I don't really know much about it. I just know that people were apparently throwing up and being sick in the theaters and leaving in the middle of the film and stuff.
I don't even know what that would take at this point.
Neither do I, because I'm never particularly grossed out or freaked out by anything in movies. So
like if I made it through Serbian film without puking, like I think I could probably make
Serbian
it through
film that really didn't
anything.
It doesn't. I mean, I've seen Salo 30 Days of Sodom.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a movie. It's not real. It doesn't freak. I don't know. Like that stuff never bothered me past when I was 8 years old and I watched Alien with my dad and he explained to me how effects are done and nothing ever freaked me out in a horror movie again.
I got like Fangoria magazine when I was like 8 years old.
And Terrifier 2 is entirely practical effects. So
really?
That's
Oh, now I really want to watch.
So if you're a fan of that kind of stuff,
yes, I am.
I guess
who did the effects? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay. I'm going to check it out.
It was more of a thing that I just saw like talk about it, and I was like, oh, I'll file that away for maybe later, and then I kind of didn't get back around to it. But
I will check it out. El Guapo 3385. Any thoughts on Callisto Protocol not getting a Japanese release? I didn't even hear that story.
Yeah, it's not coming out in Japan because Japan doesn't like dismemberment, and they won't change it.
Really?
They won't change it for...
Did the original Dead Space not release in Japan?
It had a lot of trouble, as I recall.
Did it?
Yeah, there was a whole thing with that.
Interesting.
But there's a cultural taboo about dismemberment in Japan.
So I'm trying to think now about games that have dismemberment that were or were not released in Japan.
A lot of them have modified versions or the gore kind of turned down or turned off. There's also a thing about it also comes from I think the finger thing, the pinky thing from Yakuza stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's a taboo on that. I've heard, I don't remember if it's true or not, but I've heard that like The Simpsons gets redone with 5 fingers because only having 4 fingers is not cool in Japan. It's one of the reasons if you look at like even their most anime, like even their most cartoony stuff they do always has the correct number of fingers.
Yeah.
It's sort of like how like you can't put out something with skeletons in China.
Oh, right.
It's a taboo about that.
It's just some weird quirk that they have.
So they were like, you need to change this, and the people make Callisto Protocol were like, no, we're not going to change it.
I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to sacrifice my vision either. How do you even make it without this?
Well, also that would be a very difficult fix.
Yeah, how do you even... You can't... The game's built on dismemberment.
Built around dismembering these things. So
it's one of the mechanics.
Maybe, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe Dead Space wasn't as hard to sell because the necromorphs are less human.
Yeah.
And these are maybe more human-looking things. I don't know.
El Guapo says, like, you consider the sex and the gore content that Japan is known for, like...
Yeah, Justin Horman says, like, Resident Evil 7 is stuff missing, like, you don't chainsaw your hand off, and other stuff is just gone later in the game.
Like, Japanese horror movies have dismemberment, though?
I can't really think of any.
Really?
Like what? Korean movies
The
do.
Piano Wire.
In what?
What? The name is slipping my mind now. Wasn't it Mike's film where the girl uses the piano wire and lops the leg off?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah.
What's the movie?
Audition?
Audition, yeah. Yeah, she lops his leg off with the piano wire.
But also, that didn't play a lot in Japan. That was a big hit outside of Japan. Because Japan's... But also, like, he did that because that was horrible and daring for a Japanese movie. Like...
That scene is...
Same with I think that was also him that cut the...
the needles in the eye.
Cut the nipples off. And that,
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's as crazy as you can get in Japanese horror, I guess.
Interesting. Vincent, which news story from the past month are you most happy to not have to cover?
Yeah.
And why is it the Bayonetta VO controversy? That was a whole lot to do about nothing, man.
Yep. That was
like...
That, I will say, I mean, you didn't get to see it because we weren't doing shows, but the first time I saw that woman's video, I'm like, this doesn't smell right. Something's up. Like, especially because what she was saying they offered her, I'm like, that's just kind of scale.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make sense to offer someone as a lead act, but then it turned out that's what they offered her to play, like a additional voice thing after she'd already turned down the big payday, which was not a huge payday, but it was a pretty big payday for someone who does one character and hasn't had a voice role since Bayonetta 2.
Yeah.
For a 5-day
And I'll be honest with you,
week.
I don't know if y'all played Bayonetta 3, but the girl who replaced her is fine.
Jennifer Hale.
Yeah.
It's like, that's fucking Shepard.
Yeah.
Like, and that, by the way, was the other thing where they're like, oh, they didn't want to pay for this, so they went, which I'm like, Jennifer Hale definitely cost them more than $15,000.
Yeah.
So they clearly weren't trying to save money.
I mean,
so
I
what
was
were
a
they doing
little
here?
surprised that she got paid so little to be the lead character in a big video
Well, no, but
game.
when it turned out what her actual offer was, and then what the revised offer was, it was more than fair.
Yeah. It still seemed a little low to me, but as it turns out, it was all her.
No, it's just that voice actors get paid less than they're worth.
Yeah.
And, like, it could have been a valuable element of it, but now it just turned into a thing where you don't trust them. And already we're running into a problem. You know, a lot of the voice actor people have popped up and it's like, it sets us back by how much.
Yeah.
And you're already running into a problem where game companies are looking at using AI voices to voice stuff instead of humans.
Yeah.
And this is just going to push them further in that direction because the AI doesn't argue with you and try to sabotage your launch campaign on Twitter 9 months later.
It sounded like she was just kind of down on her luck a little bit and needed money. And it just
she backed off of all of it once Schreier dug the actual story
it all came
out.
out in a bad sort of way. I feel bad for her because you could tell that she's struggling a little bit.
Poor Sterling had to do 3 shows on it because the story kept changing back and forth every time.
He's got to do a rant show once a week. It's not easy, so I can understand why sometimes he has the low-hanging fruit. Minority Games, thank you for the bits, man. All the crying smiley faces. I appreciate it, man. That's awesome. The Legacy, thank you for Twitch Prime. Appreciate it. Sneaky, I find it stupid a game could win every award and then not win Game of the Year. It makes no sense to me. I agree with you, man. I'll tell you what, if you talk to any of the XGT guys, they'll tell you that I drove them crazy at our Game of the Year awards because I was the guy who stuck to this stuff. I was the guy who was like, no, we can't give it this and then not give it this. And they'd be like, why not? We just want to award both games. I'm like, no, because it doesn't make sense logically. So there's kind of 2 different camps you can go into when you do the awards. Do you want it to be like this communal celebration of gaming where everybody wins and everybody gets a participation trophy? Or do you want it to be something that people can really trust? And I always sided with the editorial angle of we want it to be something people can trust and put weight behind. So we always did it that way. Other publications did it the other way. I don't know that there's any right way or wrong way to do it, but...
Like the thing where it's like, oh, the Game of the Year doesn't win best in its own genre category because, like, we want another game to get a chance, or that gives away the surprise, or whatever. So I'm just like, it's silly. It doesn't. I guess there have maybe been a couple of times when, like, the game I thought was the best of the year was more of an overall picture game and not the best of its genre of the year. I go. But that's rare. That's very rare. It's more of a, the more than the sum of its parts argument for Game of the Year when you haven't won like your own category, your own genre category, or like even just game direction. But that also happens in movies with the Oscars where people are like, how did the best picture of the year not also have the best director of the year, considering the director is the one who makes the picture?
Yeah,
but it does happen.
It does. It's just inconsistencies. Some people want to do it that way. Oh my God. Wiffle Ball in the chat. He says to watch Spirited on Apple TV this Friday. I worked on it. So everyone, you guys remember Sam, our old TriCaster TD? He is Wiffle Balla, and he has worked on something on Apple TV called Spirited. So go watch it. And also, what's up, Sam? How you doing, brother? Miss you, man. Hope you're doing good out there. Seems like you are. Let me see if I have one more. Have you guys seen Audition? How did you react to it? Yeah, we were just talking about it.
I own Audition.
It was amazing. It was really, really good.
I own Audition. That should tell you what I thought of it.
Yeah, it's really good. I love Mike in general. Like, pretty much everything he does, I love a lot. We'll answer one more here. Rigor Mortis UK, thank you for all the Tier 1 subs you're giving to people in chat. Again, you should show up every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, at twitch.tv/siftedgames, because people are giving stuff away in our chat, and it is awesome. Zet Saber Juno, the last one. If PlayStation VR2 were wireless, would the price be justified?
No, but it would help. But it's still too much.
So is he saying if it were wireless and still had the same tech? No, it still had the same tech.
Yeah, I think that's the implication there.
Then
it was the same item, but with no wire.
I probably would buy it for that price, provided I tried yours first and didn't barf.
I would. I mean, if it were a Universal headset, maybe, but it's not. It's a Sony headset, and software support will dry up in 8 months.
That's true.
Like, that's the problem.
Don't forget, though, the Quest price went up to $400.
Yeah, but if you gave me something that like I could guarantee was going to be 5 years of pretty good games coming out on a steady stream, that would be different. Wired or not wired for that price. But I know that this is throwing $550 in a hole to play the launch lineup and 2 more games in the next year, and that's the end of it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is that Sony doesn't support this stuff more than a year out. Yeah. They say they're going to, but they did that with the PSP, they did it with the Vita, they did it with PSVR, and there's no reason to think they won't do it with VR2.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for GameFace 320. This has been awesome. It's been great to get back together with you guys, have the back and forth between Matt and I and chat again. It's just good to be back and out in the world. It's good to be here with you, Matt. I have been trapped in an apartment for the last 2 weeks with COVID. It is just good to get out and be around people, even if it's virtually in our chat. So thanks to everybody who showed up. Thanks to all you guys who helped us out with Twitch Prime today on the live stream. We appreciate it. Again, if you're watching the show in the archive on our Patreon or at sifted.net, please go and help us out with Twitch Prime. We had a really bad month last month, and Christmas is coming. We'd really appreciate it. If you're listening to this show on any of the podcast services out there and you like it and you'd like to help us, you can go to patreon.com/sifted and pledge whatever you want. Even $1 a month is awesome. We thank everybody for everything they pledge, and we really appreciate it. And as I said, we're here every Tuesday at twitch.tv/siftedgames at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at Dinfire. Matt is at mkeil, M-K-E-I-L. And Sifted is at Sifted Games. Though, Matt, I got to say, we may be leaving Twitter in the not-too-distant future. As soon as Jack finishes building his new social media network called Blue Sky, my ass is out of Twitter. I'm gone. And chances are we're probably taking Sifted's account with us to that new social media platform, app. I don't know what it's going to end up being. It sounds pretty crazy what they're working on, but we'll see. But for the time being, we're going to stay on Twitter, and I'll stay on Twitter for a little while.
Yeah, I think that'll be a while.
You think? I don't know. They already have beta invites going out.
But they got to launch that thing in some real solid. It'll be next year, I think.
Yeah, maybe. So we'll be around for a while. Again, we're at Sifted Games on Twitter. It's crazy what happened while we were gone with Twitter. It's nuts what's happening on Twitter. It really is. Somebody can just pay $8 and impersonate me if they want, and there's nothing I can do about it.
It's almost like the systems were in place for a reason.
Right. Did you see Lockheed Martin lost billions of dollars in their stocks, and that Lily or what?
Yeah, Lily, yeah. And then
what is he thinking?
He isn't, because he's a moron. He's always been a moron. Some of us have known this for a while because we are privileged to certain information and knowledge of internal things from people who have been working at tech companies up in the Silicon Valley for a long time, because I grew up there and I hear things.
Yeah.
He is a terrible manager.
He really is.
He's
just killed Twitter in a week.
People knew that from PayPal. It was XCOM. What was that? XCOM merging with whatever that thing was.
Yep.
XCOM merged with whatever that. I can't remember the name of the company they merged with to become PayPal. But
everyone thinks
they removed him as CEO while he was on his honeymoon and left him with his investment stuff because they liked his money.
I've never seen someone get so much credit for stuff they didn't do.
He's the best example of failing up I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. And that's saying something. We've seen some fail uppers.
And now his stupid shit is public for everyone to see. And he's firing people who talk against him as it happens, and it could not be more obvious. And it is, to be fair, very entertaining.
It is. Yep.
And I don't like that everybody's losing their job and having a hard time with this, and people are freaking out about it. But there is not a. They
will be hired.
You think somewhere like Nintendo or Disney that values their brand so much are going to be caught dead near that service again?
Yeah, I know.
Come on.
Who would want to advertise on there?
You can never trust that someone with a blue check mark with Nintendo in their name is going to pop up and put another like Princess Peach.
That already happened.
Yeah, it happened already.
Mario flipping the bird.
Where's pregnant Luigi getting screwed by Bowser next? Like, it's all in there. It's all coming. It's all going to happen.
Yep.
The only way to win is not to play.
It's crazy. So anyway, that's GameFace 320. Thanks to all you guys for watching on the archive, on the live stream. It's good to be back on Twitch.tv. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.